Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, the 2024 edition. Between 2014 and 2022, Britain hosted the annual round of the UCI Women's World Tour, the Women's Tour, with winners the likes of Lizzie Deignan on 2 occasions, Demi Vollering, Kasia Nuviadoma, Lisa Brennauer and Elisa Longo-Borghini 2 years ago. The 2024 edition, 4 stages. Getting underway from Welshpool. We have no sound. We have no sound. No. We have no sound. The race all set up in Welshpool for stage 1. We're in the heart of Wales. Stage 1, 142.4 kilometres. Let's have a little look at the montage.
It's going to be a victory for Boss. Boss takes her 3rd stage win.
And they've come together, big crash, phenomenal ride from Demi Vollering. Lorena Wiebes takes 2 stages in 2 days.
The riders assembled here are worthy of any World Road Race Championships here.
It goes to De Hoora. Is it going to be a dream return now for Lizzie Deignan? A phenomenal stage victory for the British rider. Longo-Borghini takes it for Trek Segafredo.
Some fantastic editions of the Women's Tour over the years, but this, the first edition of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Some fantastic, exciting racing. Let's have a little look at the overview of what's to come.
The inaugural Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women consists of 4 stages across Wales and northwest England. Stage 1, the longest of the race at 142.4 kilometres, starts in Welshpool and finishes on the north coast in Llandudno. The second stage is a 140-kilometre loop centred around Wrexham. Warrington hosts the start and finish of Stage 3, and the final stage of this year's tour is a short, sharp route from Manchester to Lee.
Open. Well, a fantastic parkour that is being made for the 4 stages for the next round of the UCI Women's World Tour. Some brilliant stages. It's open. A hard stage to start off, heading into the heart of Wales. One predicted bunch sprint on Saturday. Let's have a little look at the race ahead.
Departing from Welshpool in the heart of mid-Wales, the riders will face a formidable 142.4 kilometre opening stage with over 2,000 metres of climbing to endure. The first Queen of the Mountains climb is the Category 1 ascent of Llanudno. The route continues towards the second Queen of the Mountains climb at Tina Lydiart, and then it's on to the day's intermediate sprint at Dol Garreg. A series of punchy climbs with 10 kilometres to go are likely to whittle down the bunch before a spectacular finish on the promenade. Welshpool is now a bustling market town offering a maze of streets and fine buildings that denote the town's prestigious past. The Montgomery Canal runs through the town, offering great walks and leisurely cycling. Overlooking the town is the medieval Powys Castle, built in the mid-13th century. It has a truly inspiring backdrop and marks the town's regal origins. Sandwiched between the Great and Little Orme headlands is Llandudno. It's the largest seaside town in Wales, with the North Shore surrounded by its sweeping Victorian promenade comprising shops, hotels and fairground rides. It's also home to the longest pier in Wales, extending 700 metres into the Irish Sea.
Four national champions on the start line. Ruby Roseman Gannon, the Australian road race champion. Alongside her is Pfeiffer Georgie, racing in that British champions jersey on home roads. Christine Majerus, the Luxembourgish champion. We've also got the world champion in Lotte Kopecky on the left-hand side here. Well, thanks for joining us for stage one of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. My name's Hannah Walker. Alongside me is Danny Rowe here in the commentary box. Danny Rowe, 4 fantastic stages ahead of us. We're getting underway in a bustling stage one here in Welshpool.
Yeah, we can't wait, can we? It's always been such a fantastic race, and now in a little bit of a transition with new race organisers in British cycling taking this race on. It's always such a tough race, a very open race, unpredictable, and it's given us some really exciting finales.
Well, straight away through kilometre zero earlier on this morning, it was Hayley Simmons who was the first rider to really start to push things on. And then it was Josie Talbot, the former Oceania road race champion from Cofidis, who launched her attack. There was no real reaction from behind, everyone looking around, and this was a strong move from the rider from New South Wales.
Yeah, a really strong move by Josie Talbot, the Australian rider for Cofidis, and I think that's what these teams have got to do. If we look at how Ride London was raced with a really strong SD Works Pro Time lineup, these other teams can't hand it to SD Works here. So yeah, a brilliant move early on in today's stage on super grippy, tough roads.
Well, what you're looking at, you'd think already we were heading into the first of the Queen of the Mountains, but these roads have been undulating, they've been up and down all throughout the stage so far, and still we haven't passed one of the Queen of the Mountains. This was the move with Christine Majerus, who is no stranger to success here in Britain. She counter-attacked, and it was Liv Lula-Jaco who went along with that move, along with the first move of the Great Britain cycling team. Also trying to get themselves involved were the Alba road racing team, along with Team DSM Firmenich Post-NL.
Yeah, I think it's really important for these bigger World Tour teams to be present in every single move that goes up the road today, unless it's maybe a 1 or 2 rider breakaway. It's clear that SD Works want to take this into their own hands. They were in total control back in Ride London, but yeah, this was a move earlier today. They shut down that solo move of Josie Talbot, and we had these riders going clear, not for long, however. Like you said, Hannah, it's such tough roads here. There's not been any categorised climbs so far in this race, but it's always so undulating, so grippy. That's certainly something that I remember having raced here many times before, of course.
Of course, incredibly difficult. Just getting a little look at one of our invited teams there. That's Pro Noctis 200 Degree Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting, Joe Tinley, who rode 10 years ago in the first, what was the women's tour. She was a part of that select breakaway. It all came back together, brought back Nicole Frayne, the former Australian road race champion there for Hess Cycling Team. One of our 6 invited British continental teams. Here's a teammate. This is Rotun Gafinovitz of Hess Cycling. And this, as we join live here for stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. It's the rider from Hess Cycling, one of our invited teams, who has a handful of seconds over the peloton so far.
She does, and it's actually a rider that I've ridden with myself in my final year of racing back in 2018 as part of Wow Deals Pro Cycling, alongside Mariana Vos. Rotem Gafanitz is a very, very strong rider. She is an Israeli rider. She always raced with her heart on her sleeve, always super aggressive, and I think that's what these teams have got to do. You know, we've talked about many, many times how to beat SD Works and how to race here in the UK, and for sure it's being aggressive, looking for those opportunistic moves, perhaps not on a categorised climb. I think when we look at a profile of any race, we always highlight the categorised climbs as to what to really look out for, but I think it's super important to see these opportunities on these uncategorised climbs. These are such tough roads. I really can't reiterate this enough here in the UK. You might look at a profile and think, it looks pretty easy on paper, you know, not too much elevation. However, today is over 2,000 metres, of course, but it's just relentless. It just goes up and down all day. You never feel like you're in a rhythm. There's no fluidity to racing in the UK. It feels claustrophobic with the high hedgerows. That was something Lizzie Deignan said about the British racing, and you can see by these riders already now struggling, going out the back, only about 80 kilometres into the race.
Absolutely. This is Madeline Leach of the Life Plus Wahoo team, one of our British riders, the 21-year-old, just struggling to hold on to the back. But this has been quite the story throughout for a number of riders, where you've been yo-yoing on and off the back of the peloton just by the pure nature of the roads, not necessarily the racing. At one point we had that lull, and still the difficulty, the arduous roads here really lent itself to the hard racing. Several more riders just starting to be distant, but meanwhile, Gofinovic still has a slender advantage. This is Emma Caitlin Dimbley of the Alba Development Road team from up in Scotland. When you find yourself in this position, Danny, and there's a small group of you, you can see the peloton just ahead, what's the best thing to do here?
I mean, all of these riders are going to be on their knees. They've been dropped for a reason here, so they're clearly suffering, which is never a good sign, especially this early on in the race. And also in a stage race, there's going to be cumulative fatigue that sets in every single day. However, if you do find yourself in this, position, maybe, you've been not greatly positioned, in an earlier technical section, for example, you might have taken a bottle, punctured, find yourself in the back chasing on. You have to work together. It's one of those moments where you might not have any teammates, but you've got to almost work as a team in this scenario to try and get yourself back into contention, onto the back of that peloton, on the wheel in front of you, because we know within cycling how much easier, of course, it is to sit on that wheel in that shelter. You can just see, though, how hard these roads are again, and it's going to be something that we talk about for the next 4 days. The peloton is spread across the entirety of the road, but the faces on these riders just show how tough it is already.
16 teams making up the peloton here at the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. 89 riders starting, 4 World Tour teams, 10 continental teams and 1 national team. That's the Great Britain national team. We've got Lizzie Deignan here, who's won on British roads. We know 2 occasions when it was formerly the Women's Tour. We've got Anna Henderson, which is great to see her back, having only just broken a collarbone a little over 4 weeks ago. Not been a fantastic start to the season for Anna Henderson, but we know that she's been putting in the hard work while trying to recover from that injury, coming back here for the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Eleanor Barker, Eleanor Backstead, Millie Cousins and Flora Perkins making up that squad, with Chris Newton at the helm. We've seen a few little moves from the Great Britain national team, trying to get themselves into moves and also following the moves, not necessarily the riders making any attacks. When you take a look at the makeup, it's not often that we see a British national team come together these days. It's a bit of a rarity, isn't it? How, when you've got a group of new riders, can you try and gel together?
Yeah, it's a really unique situation here because, of course, these riders aren't used to riding together throughout the season. Millie Cousins and Flora Perkins, of course, are on the same team in Fenix de Kernick and Lizzie Deignan and Eleanor Backstead. However, this is a new composition for this race, so they have to come together and work out the best way of featuring in the race and gaining their best result. I'm sure Lizzie Deignan will be the leader, and it'll be really interesting to see how she goes. She has been in more of that domestique role within Little Trek, but I do feel that they will be working for the British rider. I think the parkour really suits her attributes as a rider, and I think for that team they have to race aggressively. They don't have a, what we would call a pure sprinter. Lizzie Deignan is fast in a finish, but not against the likes of Charlotte Kool or Lorena Wiebes, for example, are 2 best sprinters in this race. So I think for Chris Newton, the director sportif, there's a lot of anticipation on this first Queen of the Mountains, which the riders are currently on. That is the Cat 1 climb of today, the only Cat 1 climb of stage 1. So that's 6.1 kilometres at 5.3%, and the top comes with 80.8 kilometres to go. So I think, again, going back to the best way of the British cycling national team getting a result here in the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. will be to ride aggressively and anticipate not letting any moves go up the road with the big teams, the World Tour teams, and then looking for opportunistic moments on the climbs and the hard parkour that we've got today.
They can really take advantage of it, can't they? Because just on paper, you can't point out and say, well, just because it's a relatively flat run into Llandudno, that it's going to be for the sprinters and that all of the sprinters are going to make it there. If you can try and make the stage difficult, it can really try and eliminate those sprinters from being there, or at least having fresher legs.
Yeah, definitely. It's 2,178 metres of elevation today, so it's a really, really tough stage. So for those other teams, and I'm talking not SD Works, not DSM, Firmenich, Post NL, with the two fastest sprinters, they have to try and make it hard. They have to try and wear down the legs of SD Works and use that as a tactic to try and kind of close that the level playing field, get it a little bit more together for the final. This looks like Eleanor Baxter just taking off her gilet, so arm in the air. That means the team car will come to the back of the peloton and assist Eleanor Baxter, so you'll be able to see them here now. The mutual service car just going past Eleanor Baxter, so you'll have the Great Britain national team car coming up now on the left hand side of the screen as you see it.
But this is a difference as well to racing on the continent when you're racing abroad, because of course they'll be driving on the left-hand side of the road, which is different to what they'll be used to when the team cars will be on the right-hand side of the road. They're having to service on the opposite direction here.
Yeah, you can see them here though, still feeding on the right-hand side. So it's a little bit tricky for the riders. The feeds are generally on the right-hand side. So I'm glad that is a little bit of continuity. But yeah, like you say, especially for the drivers that are used to driving, of course, on the right-hand side of the road, it's something a little bit different. I definitely wouldn't want to be a driver in the convoy, that's for sure. But yeah, Eleanor Baxter just taking the opportunity to go back and get rid of her gilet there. She'll be able to have a little chat with Chris Newton in the team car, you know, make sure everyone's feeling okay. Of course, the riders will have race radios and they'll be able to communicate that way, but there's nothing quite like going back to the team car, having that kind of face-to-face communication. Just let the DS know how she's feeling, how the other riders in the team are feeling as well. So yeah, Eleanor Baxter, very experienced rider, still very young of course, but she's got a lot of experience racing. A really strong integral part of that Little Trek team, where she's been working tirelessly as a domestique in the past couple of seasons. A lot of bad luck, injury and illness, really tenacious rider, resilient rider. So yeah, great to see her in the national team here.
We're on to the base of the first Queen of the Mountain of the day, this Category 1 climb. 6.1 kilometres long, average gradient at 5.3%. We come from 166 metres above sea level. They'll crest at the top at 487 metres. It's a difficult climb. When you get over the top, you're into the moors. It's exposed, it's open. You can see Joe Tinley there in the red jersey of Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee, just pacing at the front. And she's a rider who will be trying to look for her opportunities throughout the next 4 days, especially within her team. A big opportunity for them to be racing here, and their first Women's World Tour race.
Yeah, it's huge for these smaller teams, especially the British teams, the British riders as well. There's a lot more pressure. It's home roads. There's, you know, selectors here. It's a race that they can use as a shop window almost in the way that they perform, and sometimes it only takes one real standout performance to open the eyes of directors sportifs in bigger teams. So it is a huge opportunity. There'll be a lot of nerves, or there would have been a lot of nerves coming into a race like this, especially being a first World Tour race for some, like you mentioned, Hannah. So yeah, it's part of, you know, that huge opportunity here in the UK, and the riders love racing here. You know, if you talk to any of the riders, they always love racing in the UK. There's always great support, and I really hope we see it today or maybe tomorrow, where if the race passes a school, the teachers will get all the school children out on the side of the roads with their cowbells, and it's a goosebump moment. I remember when I was riding, you know, in editions of this race in the past, and you'd get goosebumps when you rode past and had that support on the side of the road. It's always, you know, a really well organised event, and it will be, of course, with British cycling taking over as well. But we've got our first little bit of action on this climb now.
84.1 kilometres to go, coming up to 2 hours of racing, and a move here from one of the invited teams, the British Continental teams, Dolcini O'Shea. Looks like Connie Hayes, who's trying to apply some pressure up towards the front, but immediately it's the former Italian road race champion Elena Cecchini who slots herself into the wheel. Also Life Plus Wahoo are there. Some news from that team. Kaya Risch has been the first rider to abandon the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. They're down to 5 riders already. The Polish rider here, the 25-year-old, not able to finish stage 1 here.
Yeah, and we heard, didn't we, Kate Richardson, unfortunately unable to start. She was hit by a car in training and suffered a fractured scapula, so we wish her all the best as well. But another big opportunity for the Life Plus Wahoo team, of course, a British team led by Bob Varney, who I believe has done such a great job in keeping that team alive through adversity in the last few years and through COVID, and given these British riders such a huge opportunity. And now actually only one British rider within this team, but a real development team who are always really, really well featured in the races.
It really shows the international flavour of the squad and how they've gone from primarily a roster full of British riders where they've been able to recruit so many different nationalities. They've got 6 different nationalities who were here from Great Britain, the Netherlands, we've got Poland, Spanish, Heidi Franz, who you can just see up towards the front there on the far left of Connie Hayes. We've also got Karin Söderqvist, the Swedish rider too, so it just shows the international flavour within the team.
Yeah, and I think they've got a real opportunity this week, and I think they'll be looking at this race to, you know, really maybe look at that young rider jersey, the Queen of the Mountains jersey potentially as well, Alicia Gonzalez and Heidi Franz being their GC riders. So really good to see them well positioned here up towards the front. And we talk about that sliding room being really important to start the climb as far at the front as you possibly can if you're not one of the strongest climbers, and give yourself that room to just slide back if you are struggling on the climb and still be in contention towards the front at the top.
Saint-Michel Mavé-Cobert 93 with 2 riders. They're protecting their Marion Bonnell, the 19-year-old French rider.
What a rider she is. Unbelievable. She's really come to fruition this season. Won the Alps Classic only last week, and we saw her at the UAE Tour where she finished 6th on that general classification. So real, one of the standout young riders, the superstars of the future.
You talk about shop window, but she's been showing herself all season, and not just in one race throughout the year, but consistently showing and proving her talent, and still only 19 years of age. She's not afraid to really take it to the bigger riders as we come into this exposed open moorland, coming towards the top of this first Queen of the Mountain, the Category 1. 10 points are on offer, so big points, and whoever should take this climb has a real chance of being on the podium at the end of the day in that first Queen of the Mountains leaders jersey.
Yeah, and that's what's also so nice, interesting about a stage race. There's so many races going on within the race. There's jerseys and Queen of the Mountains points, sprint points. You've got the young rider classification as well. But the Great Britain national team really well positioned here. 4 of their riders. You've got Anna Henderson next to Lizzie Deignan. Lizzie Deignan looks like she's going to be taking this one.
Deignan starts to come round on the right-hand side. Franz has unleashed her sprint here just on the left-hand side for Life Plus Wahoo. Franz takes the 10 points at the top of the Queen of the Mountain up to Llandudno. You could see she was waiting patiently. She positioned herself well there.
Yeah, really well for Heidi Franz. And we were just talking, weren't we, about the Life Plus Wahoo team and what their objectives would be for this race, and the Queen of the Mountains definitely one to look out for. So like you said, Hannah, our only Category 1 climb of today, so she will take maximum points over that. Our second categorised climb comes with 37.9 kilometres to go. That is the top of that one, so starts at 40.9 to go. That's a second category climb, only 3.3 kilometres at 3.4%. But look at the way this is split now over these moors.
Well, look at this. The peloton is now split just due to the difficulty of the climb and also the pace that's been set into several groups. And certain teams are trying to take advantage of this. 82.7 kilometers to go. We've clicked over 2 hours of racing. We've got 3 distinctive groups with several riders grappling to try and get themselves back into contention, knowing that they need to try and close the gap as quickly as possible, because over the top of the moors here, you don't descend immediately, you continue over the top of the moor, and this could be a real danger.
It could indeed. The riders are riding into a crosswind from their left as well. So until they start descending, they will then turn into a headwind. So we know that isn't conducive for a breakaway, but let's see who we've got here.
Lizzie Dignan's there. There is what looks to be from this helicopter shot as Christine Majerus. We've got one rider there from Humid Powered Health. Life Plus Wahoo still in the frame, as are Volker Vessels and Saint-Michel Aubert 93. That's Brunel. They would be very motivated to keep this move going, because the big teams who have missed it here, Team DSM, Firmenich, Post NL, they don't have one rider represented. They're trying to bridge across here.
Yeah, it looks like it is coming back together somewhat, but we know how split that was over the top of those moors there. So there was going to be riders all along the road. Let's see where Lorena Wiebes is. This is a big group now, trying to come back, but it's all in one line. So really, riders really struggling here under the pressure of the climb and how that was ridden, and specifically the Queen of the Mountains points there with Lizzie Dignan going for those. So just shows potentially what she might be going for within this race, just stretching the legs somewhat as well. And of course it's Olympic year, so riders have really different approaches coming into these races. There's also selection, with every single federation or nationality having different criteria as to what riders need to do before the Olympics to be selected, and the British team hasn't yet been announced.
Human Powered Health bridge across to that select group. They go straight past Ruby Roseman Gannon there, the Australian road race champion. Eleanor Barker is bridging across too. And once again, Life Plus Wahoo have a rider represented. Team DSM Firmenich Post NL with one. But now the British team, the Great Britain national team there, you could just see 3 riders at the front, including Lizzie Dignan. There's Cecchini.
Yeah, it's Eleanor Barker, the rider for Uno X, in that group. And you could just see Lizzie Dignan talking into the radio when that little gap developed there, as to just motivating Eleanor Barker just to press on, try and keep this one rolling. The British team really want to ride this aggressively. They need to form some sort of breakaway. You can see one of the riders just with a little bit of polite interference on the front there. So really keen to keep this one motoring forward. 2 riders from SD Works Pro Time as well, so they're going to be keen to keep this one going.
A terrific landscape over the top of this climb, Llangynnog.
It's Lorena Wiebes
Wow.
in this group, and it just shows the versatility of this rider. And I said to you, Hannah, didn't I? I think she is capable of taking all 4 stages.
Coming into the race, it was their sports director, Danish Stam, who had said, we come here with the aim of winning all 4 stages. They know it's possible. They've brought practically an A-team. They've got Lotte Kopecky, Lorena Wiebes, Christine Majerus, Elena Cecchini, Barbara Garishi, and Chantal van den Broek-Black. 6 riders who, all in their own right, are capable of winning at least 1 stage.
Yeah, it's an A-team, isn't it? I mean, it's the strength and depth that this team has got that really stands them apart. And the way they rode in Ride London, they were in control from start to finish. And she's just impressed me so much. She can do everything, can't she? I mean, we talk about her being a pure sprinter, but the way she rode in, Amstel Gold Race, taking that race. And I looked at the elevation of Amstel Gold, and it was just shy of 2,000 metres of elevation. So it just shows what she can do. In Ride London, she was going for those Queen of the Mountains points, which had those seconds on offer. So she never became complacent there. And of course, took the 3 victories on the way. She's a winner. She says time and time again that second feels like losing. And it's just really impressive to see how she races and puts herself in the front. She doesn't look at a stage and think, oh, it's too... it's too hilly for her. She really can do everything. And I was doing a little bit of research into her and her background, and I thought it was, found out that she's actually started cycling twice. She stepped out of cycling when she was quite young. She wasn't enjoying it, and did a little bit of acrobatic gymnastics, which she believed helped her with her kind of explosive power, and then started again at the age of 14. And her idols were Marianne Vos and Peter Sagan, and she loved how Sagan, you know, raced. He was a sprinter, but he also rode super aggressively and was really keen to just race his bike. And you can really see those attributes coming through with Lorena Wiebes. She clearly just loves bike racing. She loves giving it a go. She loves working for her team when she can as well. We've seen her in the past smashing up the Cowberg, haven't we? But the way she rode throughout the Spring Classics campaign, and how she can handle these, you know, shorter, sharper climbs. And also here, you know, we've just seen her at the top over a 6-kilometre climb. She can do it. She's got that versatility, the capacity to be able to soak up that workload and still be able to sprint in the final.
She certainly has, and it's been impressive. Only 2 weekends ago, she was here on British roads winning all stages of the Ride London Classic. And it's worth pointing out as well, Charlotte Kool was a part of that 6-rider breakaway there. So she's shown that she's in terrific form as well over the top of that climb. So she's here to say, look, you might be able to get over the climbs too. You might be one of the world's fastest sprinters, but I'm a sprinter too. I'm challenging you for that, and I've come to the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, and I'm going to challenge every sprinter here across these hard parkour.
Yeah, and I think that's what you get with sprinters. It's that mentality, that winning mentality, isn't it? And it's definitely the case with Charlotte Kool, who has echoed the words of Lorena Wiebes, that they don't look at each other as of course they're rivals, but they don't look at what each other are doing on the road. They just focus on themselves and their own performance. Charlotte Kool, of course, is still searching for that first victory of 2024. Unfortunately, she didn't take part in the UAE Tour, where we were all bigging up this rivalry and who would be coming into the season, you know, the fastest bike rider on 2 wheels. She was ill, and she suffered with a little bit of COVID as well within the season. So it's not been the perfect season for Charlotte Kool, but she said herself she's back at her best. She's motivated. She's got a great team around her, as well, of course, with Pfeiffer Georgie and Rachele Barbieri coming, you know, into this team as being, you know, that final lead-out woman for Charlotte Kool. So yeah, let's see. Hopefully we'll see them going head-to-head again this week. I'm sure we will.
Let's see if they have a big duel over the top of the climb, over the moors, down onto the descent. And some of these descents can be tricky if you're not used to these types of roads. You see the tree cover. It's Liv and Lula Jaco who are trying to push things along with Amber Pate here on the front. There's Letizia Paternoster, who they'll be trying to be protecting today. Eleanor Barker always up towards the front. There is Lotte Kopecky, the world champion in the rainbow stripes.
Yeah, Letizia Paternoster, Hannah, another rider you just mentioned there being towards the front, is another, you know, great, you know, favourite, you would say, for today specifically, and all 4 stages really. If we look at the parkour of the race and how she's going this season, she's been another a standout for me. Only 24 years of age, the Italian rider, juggling both the track and the road, of course. And we kind of saw her come into this sport as a real superstar, and then she had a couple of you know, bad luck years, again with a little bit of illness and injury. And this year she's really come into the season with a bang. We saw her featuring in the Spring Classics, fighting out for, you know, the win in the likes of Dwars door Vlaanderen, where she was 3rd, Flanders, where she took a top 10. She had a good solid ride in Paris-Roubaix, and I think it's the confidence that she's gained. She said after some of these races in post-race interviews how the team have really backed her, and the belief in her own ability she's felt has really meant that she can perform at her best. And that's what we get with, you know, racing in general, that kind of success breeding success, those top 2 inches, that psychology that is so important. And I think she's got that now, and I think we're just going to see, you know, that success building. And she's a rider that can always put herself in the right position. She said, I think it was in stage 1 of Ride London, where she took that 2nd place, that actually the team were going for Georgia Baker, but Georgia Baker unfortunately got lost in the final, and she was given the all clear, that green light to be able to surf off the wheels of the other teams in the lead outs. She managed to put herself in the best position and take that second place, which she was absolutely delighted with, of course, behind Lorena Wiebes, which I think it's clear to say was head and shoulders above the rest, especially with that lead out from world champion Lotte Kopecky. So yeah, Letizia Paternoster and that team definitely one to look out for.
Zoe Langham just getting herself back into the peloton there, number 145, the 25-year-old British rider, and with, I have to say, mightily impressed with the way that these dynamic stages are being put together at such a short last moment, and particularly with the 4G and 5G, that we're able to bring you all of this live coverage despite being really in the heart of Wales, beautiful countryside. Fantastic production all round to be able to see this next round of the UCI Women's World Tour and bring the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women.
Yeah, and we've come such a long way, haven't we? I really believe that we've never kind of, women's cycling is at an all-time high, and you mentioned the coverage, and it's great to be able to come into the race with, you know, we had around 100 kilometres of the race, really tell the story of every single bike rider, rather than coming in with, you know, less than an hour to go where you see the superstars battling it out. But actually what you don't realise is that cycling is such a team sport, and it takes every single individual within a team for the victories to be had. Only one rider, of course, gets to stand on that top step of the podium, but generally it's down to a whole team's performance. So that's why it's so great to be able to bring you all of this coverage and really kind of tell the story of the whole race and how it's panned out.
But it's also great to have big partners join up with the race too in Lloyds Bank, who were announced as the lead partner for British cycling and of course the title partner for the Tour of Britain last month. It's, for me, when you take a look, Danny, over the years, it's a real game-changing long-term partnership for cycling, not just for the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women here, but also for the men's race in September too. As we just have a little look, here's Lorena Wiebes. Problem for the former European champion. She's going to have a straight bike change.
You could see where the bike was on the team car as well. It's almost the hierarchy of where the spare bikes are. So Lorena Wiebes was on the left-hand side of the car. So the most accessible for the mechanic, who jumps out of the team car and was able to just grab Lorena Wiebes' spare bike from that left-hand side of the car, straight down, a quick bike change, no stress in the peloton. I'm sure we'll see her back in no time at all. And there we have it. I mean, that was pretty quick. That's the way to do it, isn't it?
That was like a Formula One pit change, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it comes with experience and just not stressing. I think for, you know, maybe the young riders, the first time in a World Tour race, if you have a problem, you can really kind of stress out about it and lose your cool. But again, there's nothing you can do. You have to communicate to the team car as quickly as possible, whether it's a puncture and what you need from the mechanic, whether it's a wheel change, a bike change, and just get yourself to the left-hand side of the road, of course, here in the UK, and just get back on your bike as quickly as possible without losing too much energy.
Shows her experience as well without any fluster or panic. Quick bike change. Also just seeing Anne Knijnberg, the 22-year-old Dutch rider from Volker Vessels, also with a hand up. But a good opportunity for riders with this lull in action, riders getting back into the peloton, any riders who might have an issue or want to try and go back to the team car for feeding. And of course there's plenty of different feeding points along the route. There's no designated feed zone point, of course. Teams can pick where they want to go, and there'll be several throughout today's stage.
Yeah, and that's what the teams would have done before, you know, this race, probably weeks ago. Yeah, this race has come with not much time in hand because of the takeover of British cycling, of course. I think it's been organised in around 10 weeks. So chapeau to Rod Ellingworth, the race director, for getting this race happening full stop. But the riders and the teams would be able to look at the routes and work out the best possible place for the Swanniers to be able to go ahead of the race to offer that feed on the side of the road. Generally on a climb, it's definitely most conducive for the riders, you know, at a slower speed, to be able to take the bottles and any gels on the side of the road, of course.
all the logistics that goes into planning and making a professional cycling team work like clockwork. As Lorena Wiebes, interestingly, she's the rider who's going back to the team car with several bottles. She's got 2 bottles in her back pockets, 2 bottles in the bike, and taking more, giving it to the world champion Lotte Kopecky. Perhaps she's on double duty, and perhaps this is an interesting scenario that we're seeing play out here. Perhaps everyone will be thinking this is for Lorena Wiebes, but perhaps they're looking to perhaps Kopecky to be the leader today. Or even we saw Christine Majerus earlier on in the stage. She was very active. She was animating the race.
I mean, you'd certainly say so. You never ever see a race leader going back to the team car and getting bottles for teammates. So it certainly says that she will not be the protected rider for today's stage, interestingly. I think if I was Danny Stan, I think they would have been given a very open tactic to almost race as aggressively as you want. And then if Lorena Wiebes is there in the final, then of course they will be riding for her in a sprint finish. But clearly very, very aggressive today. Looks like Barbara Gruszki, the Italian rider here for SD Worx Pro Time, featured in this breakaway. Jana Korova, maybe for the Liv Alula-Jayco team. And SD Worx DSM also featured.
Human Powered Health have bridged across with 1 rider too, but in each and every breakaway that we've seen so far, SD Worx Pro Time have always had a rider represented, covering all of those moves. As Danny Rowe was just mentioning, that they have been perhaps given that open tactic, make sure all moves are covered, and this is the Italian who has become one of the best lead-out riders in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, that's why she was signed into this team. She's got so much, maybe respect's the wrong word in the peloton, but I feel that she just is able to get herself wherever she wants to be. And not just that, her leader, whoever she's working for, if it's Lorena Wiebes, she'll get her at the front at any given moment in time. And of course in that lead out, and it's so instrumental to have a rider like Barbara Gruszki in a team that you can put 100% trust in a chaotic final where you've got a sharp turn with 200 meters to go and you have to be in the first 2 positions. That is what she is best at, so it's really impressive to see.
Franziska Koch is in this move, represented for Team DSM Firmenich Postenel, the German rider. Also there is Valerie de May. Barbara Gruszki, who we've already mentioned. Millie Cousins is there, the 20-year-old rider, number 155. And still riders are trying to come back for having gone back to the team car for bottles. Just moving back there was Alana Castrique, the Belgian rider, the newly crowned Belgian gravel champion. There's Marit Rijmakers on the back for Human Powered Health, the Dutch rider. Amber Pate is here for Liv Alula-Jayco, the 29-year-old Australian. This is interesting because Millie Cousins just pulling to the right-hand side there. You heard the discussion between Marit Rijmakers there of what are you doing? Perhaps has she been given the instruction to not go through and pull there, Millie Cousins?
Potentially. I mean, I would question as to why she wouldn't roll through in that scenario. I mean, she's in a really good position and there's a really good composition of riders, especially with still 73 kilometres to go. So it'll be interesting to see now whether Millie Cousins is just sitting on the back or whether she is going to come through. It looks like she is going to roll through now. It is easier to roll through than be that kind of minesweeper on the back, having to make constant accelerations to let the rider in front of you every time they come to the back. But this group now is established, this group of 6 riders that we've got.
Katia Ragusa, sorry, the rider who is on the back for Human Powered Health, the Italian rider. Winner of the Queen of the Mountains competition at the Tour Down Under at the start of the season. And this will give them some fantastic support. The schools are out.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was talking about. It's just great when you go past the school, and obviously the school have been informed that the race is coming past and they've let the children come out. And it's about that inspiration, isn't it, of the next generation and those, you know, young children being able to watch the superstars going past on the roads that they are obviously so used to seeing outside the school gate. So just brilliant.
We're heading into North Wales, up to the Eryri National Park, Britain's 3rd national park, established in 1951. More famously known as Snowdonia, until reverting to the traditional Welsh name in February 2023. That's Eryri National Park. Covers more than 2,100 square kilometres of Conway and Gwynedd, including the highest point in Wales. We're following this border for the next 20 kilometres, so that just gives you some indication of how difficult and arduous these roads are going to be.
Yeah, they are absolutely savage, not even on a categorised climb. And again, interestingly, there's a really tough section at about 62.1 kilometres to go, 4.5 kilometre section at about 3%. So even though it's not a categorised climb, it's another really tough part of today's race. And generally within a breakaway, you get that sort of leader that really controls the breakaway. Here I'm sure it will be Barbara Gorishki, who will just be able to communicate with the other riders as to how to roll through, their best chances of staying away for as long as possible.
How important is that in terms of a breakaway? Because we've seen how hard it's been for breakaways today to stay away, and we've had several so far as we see some more riders be distanced from the peloton. To have that leader within a breakaway, to really get everyone under control, guide them, almost give them that incentive to keep rolling through and that command.
It's really important to have that dominant rider, that motivator, almost that leader taking that captain role that calls the shots. And it's usually the rider with more experience, more authority to be able to control, the other riders. But they have to come together to work as a team. Again, it's another interesting dynamic within cycling where you can find yourself in a break with different riders of different teams, but actually you've got that one common goal of trying to stay away from a rampaging peloton behind you. So you have to be able to come together in that moment and work most efficiently. Generally, the most efficient way of riding in a breakaway is that sort of team time trial formation. Here they're riding in that sort of through and off chain gang formation, really sharing the workload, not giving any riders any opportunity really to duck and dive, because they are on the front for the same amount of time, just getting to the front, swinging off to the left hand side and letting the next rider come through. So yeah, they're clearly here generating a fast pace. We did just see riders coming out the back of the peloton though, so that says to me that the pace is high in the peloton, that they're not happy with this composition of riders. So it'll be great if we could have a time gap as to what this group have got on the peloton. I'm sure we'll see some more great helicopter shots soon where we'll be able to determine how big this gap is so far.
Fantastic look at our 6 riders who are in the breakaway. But they are sharing that workload, and it seems as though they've all been given the green light from the sports directors behind that they can work here. They're quite happy with the composition. Millie Cousins here, the 20-year-old British rider racing on home roads. A special moment for her to be pulling on a Great Britain national team jersey. Of course, formerly,
they've not been let
they've not been let off.
Here, have they?
We're talking of what, a 15-second, 20-second gap. We've got Pro Noctis 200 degrees who are trying to move up with Joe Tinley. Lucy Harris is also in there.
Yeah, it looked like the team of Saint-Michel, Mavic Auburn 93 with the team on the front really driving things forward. There we go, 17 seconds now, so a really small gap to this breakaway on these undulating roads. And like I said previously, they're coming up to a really tough section. So depending on how this one drives forward, a Great Britain national team on the front as well. So maybe Millie Cousins not feeling confident that she would be able to win from this break. And that's what you have to kind of try and decipher and calculate when you find yourself in a move. Look at the riders around you, communicate with the DS in the car, try and do as much work as the rider doing the least. Be clever in a move like this.
And perhaps that might have explained before where she pulled out of the line, maybe just to assess the situation.
Yeah, absolutely, and just kind of feel how her legs are in this break. And it's another real kind of unique part about cycling. Throughout this stage race in hand, all of these riders will go through so many different ups and downs where they might start a stage and feel absolutely fantastic, but they might get 50k in and actually they think, my body feels terrible, I really don't feel good today. And it's about being confident in how you're feeling and communicating that with the team, especially if you're a leader and you've come into the race with the goal of winning a stage. I think being able to say, actually, I don't think today's my day, and giving that opportunity to another rider is something that makes a great teammate.
You've got to be very honest with your team, your teammates. Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93, the team on the front. Sitting in second wheel, Christine Majerus. It's certainly not been an easy pace that's been set at the head of the peloton, and they're not allowing these 6 riders off the leash. They've got them in the sights, and they've been slowly but surely bringing them back. And of course, you've got to factor in, when you were just mentioning there, Danny, that you might not feel great. You've also got to factor in the travel. For some riders, perhaps they've just got to today's race and not feeling great. They can change to plan B and just being honest with the team.
Definitely, and I think, you know, you have to come into these cycling races with plan A, B, C, D, E and F, and really try and, you know, communicate out on the road. And that's why you need leaders. You know, we're talking about a leader within a breakaway, but you also need leaders within your team to be able to call those shots on the road if you're not feeling good, and be able to change the tactics of the team. Of course, you can't determine what the other teams are doing either, so you have to be able to react off their moves and make the right calls on the road. And I think that's what makes a great tactician, someone again that doesn't really have to think about what they're doing. You know, the likes of Lotte Kopecky, she's an instinctive bike rider, and she'd be able to kind of suss out the dangerous moves when she's on the road and be able to react to them accordingly.
The 6 riders all back together, but immediately it's one of the UCI Continental teams, one of our British teams, Pro Noctis, 200 Degrees, Hargreaves Contracting, who have counter-attacked the move at the moment. One rider with a handful of seconds, making their debut in a UCI Women's World Tour race. A big moment for them. They've got Alan Gornall in the car as the sports director. Alongside him is Phil Kelly. She would be hoping that perhaps a few riders would have bridged across to this or tried to go with her and form the new breakaway.
Yeah, she would, but it's a really great, I think, that she's doing something. She's featuring in this race, you know, for the team, Pro Noctis, for these smaller teams, again, who you would say is the underdogs coming into this race. You need to feature. There's so much more motivation now to feature in a race with the coverage that we've got. The rewards are so much, you know, are magnified. The media surrounding the races has increased. The coverage has increased. The value for the teams, the sponsors are huge. So I think it's fantastic that these riders are racing aggressively. They've not just come into this race and, you know, letting these big world tour teams take the stage and just merely following as long as they can until they get dropped. They're putting themselves out there, their jerseys, their sponsors, they're racing aggressively. And never underestimate a break. You know, you never know what might happen. You've only got to look back to 2017 where Cassia Nieuwiedoma took, you know, that's where she really came to the fore, didn't she? On, I think it was stage one. Yeah, stage one. Held on to that leader's jersey throughout the race, won the race overall. I mean, she's never been let off the leash since then. But it really does only take one race, so why not take that opportunity?
A long-range breakaway. It was a fantastic performance, and as you say, Danny Rowe, the first time that we really saw the talent of Cassia Nieuwiedoma and the real talent of what she could do with that long breakaways. We take a look at our start in Welshpool, all of the team buses, the logistics to get here, all of the setup. Here's Hess Cycling.
Yeah, and you said, Hannah, didn't you, about travelling and these riders. We've seen a lot of images of riders on the turbo trainers, on the rollers this morning, and in anticipation potentially of a really hard start. We did have quite a long neutral section, so some riders would use that as their warm-up. But again, it's an individual rider's preference as to what they do the morning of a race. But stage one, it's really important to kind of get those legs warmed up. And a lot of the teams taken to that this morning here.
Marjolein van Geloof is no stranger to racing on British roads. And for some, they'll be okay with just doing the neutral section as a warm-up, but for others they really want to be prepared. And this is nice, isn't it? The
dogs of the peloton.
The dogs of the peloton, the mascot of Hess Cycling. There's Grace Lister, who is one of the locals to stage 1 here. She lives in Shrewsbury. She's done a recon of today's stage, and she said she was surprised at how hard it was. When I spoke to her a couple of days ago, she said when she rode it, she could only describe the stage as brutal, especially the first 70 kilometres of the race. It's either up or it's down. There's no time for any easy recovery, but the main climb of the day may well cause some big splits, which is exactly what we saw with the peloton splitting into 4 different groups. It's very open and exposed over the top, and depending on how it's raced, there is time for riders to come back together. It's hard to predict, but one thing that she said, it's going to be an exciting day.
I mean, she's
But a
predicted
tough day
pretty
to
much
start.
spot on, hasn't she?
She
I mean,
has.
that's what we've seen so far.
She can give us the lottery numbers.
she can indeed. But yeah, it was great to see. And for Hess Cycling Team, again, they've got a good option with Mylene van Geloof. You mentioned her just moments ago, Hannah. She's been super consistent in sprint finishes this year. She's had some podiums as well, so good for that team. And that local knowledge is so powerful, especially on these British roads where you can go from A roads to B roads to really small narrow roads. Critically, after the second Queen of the Mountains points today, the riders will take a very, very fast descent, narrow descent, and that's what information these riders will be able to give to their teammates in Grace Lister, having recce'd this course, to make sure they're well positioned at the front in these critical moments.
So important for riders, local knowledge, to be able to share that information with the riders, and even for some of the sports directors who've been able to try and do a recon. Well, let's have a little listen to the Managing Director of British Cycling Events, Jonathan Day. We spoke to him earlier on in the day. Let's get his thoughts on the race.
How excited are you to leading into this week in the Women's Tour of Britain back on the roads?
Yeah, it's hugely exciting moment for us at British Cycling. Clearly, we've taken the decision to create the new Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain for women, and we've still got the Men's Tour of Britain in September, and we've brought those in-house into British cycling now. So yeah, it's exciting for everyone in the organisation, and also I think for cycling in Britain as well.
A lot of hard work going in behind the scenes, I'm sure.
Oh, listen, it's been a monumental effort from all the team and everyone involved. I mean, for example, it's about 125 days to the day pretty much since the UCI gave us a green light to get the event onto the calendar as a Women's World Tour stage race. And from that time, we've just been absolutely full gas to put everything into it to get this race on. And I think we're in an absolutely fantastic place considering the really tight timeline we've been working to.
Tell us about this year's route.
Yeah, listen, I think first of all, we're working with some fantastic hosts. So obviously we're starting in Welshpool and finishing on the front in Llandudno, which I think will be a really pretty challenging stage, certainly the first half of that. Second half, things may come back together, but we'll see. And then Wrexham stage as well, again, pretty challenging, and out into Cheshire and obviously into some more challenging roads through the Welsh countryside. And then Warrington as well, back out into Cheshire, and finishing it in and around Warrington. Then that Greater Manchester stage, we've seen how popular that is in Tours of Britain over previous years, and we expect that to be exactly the same on Sunday.
And not just for British cycling, but for the fans as well. It's important for this race to be back on the roads.
Oh, it's massive. I think one of the reasons we've taken these events in-house and decided to run them ourselves now is because we feel this can just inspire tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to get on a bike and get involved in cycling and enjoy this fantastic sport. And there's something in it for everyone. These events, we can bring them into people's communities, run them past people's front doors, and obviously they will really help us enhance and raise the exposure of the sport and hopefully inspire people to get involved.
And what's the feedback been like from the teams and the riders you've been speaking to ahead of the race?
Yeah, it's really positive. I think we've got some really strong riders, some of the world's best riders. We've got some fantastic British riders as well, and I'm sure the crowds will be on the roadside. Can't wait to cheer them on over the next 4 days.
And if you had to put your money on this point, any pre-race favourites?
I think being involved in the race organisation, that's probably not one for me to comment on. However, wouldn't it be great to see our British riders do fantastically well, especially ahead of this fantastic summer that we've got with the Olympics as well.
Well, a big summer of cycling awaits us a fantastic roster of riders, fantastic teams here for the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. And it's Lucy Harris, the new signing for Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee Hargreaves Contracting, who has taken an opportunity to break away, counter-attack the 6 riders, and she has an advantage over the peloton currently as we join the race back live. The wind coming onto the left-hand shoulder, and she's using the hedgerows, Danny Rowe, right to her advantage to protect herself here.
She is indeed. Of course, the wind coming from the left-hand side, so she's trying to shelter herself as much as possible. So really good to see that she's noticed that. The wind pretty strong today, actually, between 15 and 20 kilometres an hour. Generally, wind doesn't really play a role in British racing because of the high hedgerows that we've seen, but we do have some open sections here across the moors, especially at the top of the Queen of the Mountains points today. But good that she's riding in the best possible place to shelter herself, to give herself, of course, the best chance of staying out there as long as possible. We're currently on that tough section that I talked about of around 4 kilometres at 3 to 4%. So again, super undulating. You know, hearing from Grace Lister's preview from today's race, it's clear that all of these riders have anticipated it being a really tough tour. Grippy roads, never really getting into that rhythm. So fueling is also very important in a race like this, especially when there's not much let up and you're always thinking about when you can recover the most. Making sure that you keep sipping at that water bottle, that energy drink, taking on fuel in your back pockets as well, and of course profiting off the soigneurs on the side of the road. And it's something that I always used to forget to do, and I had to put a note on my handlebar stem. We're just seeing a move here from DSM post Firmenich. Looks like the style of Francie Cock here.
Team DSM Firmenich post are now want to try and counter-attack this and really shake things up. Majerus immediately onto the move there. Likewise is Volker Wessels.
This is what we saw in Ride London with SD Works Pro Time, shutting absolutely everything down, or maybe not shutting it down, but being present, being there, having the strength and depth at the front of the peloton that meant that if a move went, someone was always in it, and not one rider had to, you know, attack time and time again or close down moves. It's really something that, you know, is so important if you want to kind of take the pressure off your leaders, not being on the back foot, not having to chase, to be in the breakaways, just means that they can sit back and watch for any counters. See Alice Wood there, the British rider.
She seems
Newly
relaxed,
married.
doesn't she?
Yeah, she's always super relaxed. Almost so relaxed she could be lying down, Alice Wood, formerly Alice Barnes, of course, the sister of Hannah Barnes, who has featured in this race in the past in the Best British Rider and podiumed and the like. So great to see her within this human-powered health team now.
Yeah, one of 4 UCI Women's World Tour teams who are racing here. We've also got Team SD Works Pro Time, Team DSM Firmenich Post NL, Liv Jaco, Alula, and Human Powered Health making up the 4 UCI Women's World Tour teams. There's Marit Rymakers alongside Alice Wood. Also, Katia Ragusa is making up the squad, Krista Dobell-Hickok, and Linda Zanatti, the Swiss rider. One of their riders who was due to race, Henrietta Christie, sadly not able to take to the start. Volker Wessels, they come with a very strong team of 6 riders, including Sabrina Stultins, Aline Janssen, Scarlett Sauren, Valerie de May, and Kaneineberg, and Margot van Pachybeker. They've been impressive this season, particularly with them trying to take opportunities on stages. They've been up there in a number of races. They've had 3 victories already this season.
They've always really impressed me. You know, they've had some superstars coming through this team, the likes of Demi Vollering, of course, as well. You know, one of the best development teams, you would say, within women's cycling, really offering a great race program, a great place to be as a young rider, for sure, in building that experience throughout a cycling career.
Well, we're looking at images of earlier on today at Welshpool at our start, and of course all of this coverage brought to you by 4G and 5G. We're just going through a little bit of a low signal area currently as we're right in the heart of Wales. But it's also brilliant to see what it was like at the start. They started in Powys, the largest county in Wales. It's in the Kingdom of Powys from the Middle Ages. It's the largest county, covering more than 5,000 square kilometres. Right in mid-Wales, when you take a look at the map, it's really in the green heart. Stretches from the fringes of the Eryri National Park in the north all the way to the Brecon Beacons in the south of the county. Actually been a regular host of stages of the various Tour of Britons over the years. Since 2010, we've had Welshpool, Newtown, Machynlleth, Builth Wells, Llandudno Wells also have hosted starts and finishes. But for Welshpool itself, its Welsh name, Y Trallwng, means the marshy or the stinky land.
Tough language, isn't it,
It's
Hannah?
a very tough language.
We've been trying to practice our Welsh all morning, haven't we? And I actually live in, well, we both do, in South Wales. We've been tapping up our Welsh-speaking friends to try and help us with the pronunciation. But it is such a tough language, but a beautiful country.
Stunning, stunning country land, brilliant for racing roads. And Welshpool itself, the historic market town from Montgomeryshire, just sits 6 kilometres from the English border. Located right on that Cambrian line. You've got the train links to Welshpool and Shrewsbury, who Grace listed, who I was speaking about before, one of the riders for Hess Cycling. She lives there just to the east of Wales. You've got Aberystwyth to the left. You've got Pwllheli on the Welsh coast, also up to the west of the country. Grace Brown, of course, took a famous win here on Broad Street where we started earlier on this morning, so we had fond memories in UCI Women's World Tour racing. That was back in 2022 when it was raining. She beat Elisa Longo Borghini and Kasia Niewiadoma. The stage started in Wrexham.
And that edition also showed us how important the intermediate sprints were, didn't we? And those kind of bonus seconds on the line. So we do have an intermediate sprint on each stage where 3, 2 and 1 seconds are on offer, and then of course 10, 6 and 4 on the line. And we really did see Grace Brown and Elisa Longo Borghini fighting it out for every single second throughout that edition in 2022, where 1 second separated them on that final general classification. So it just shows how these riders need to be attentive and try and go for every single second that is on offer. And actually, for myself, back in 2018, when I was third on GC here, it was all down to those intermediate seconds. So, yeah, in the UK, that's what it can come down to. Yes, we do have tough roads. It's rolling, it's grippy, but actually it does come back together sometimes. We've got a flat finish here today. So if it does come back together, they can be crucial.
But it makes for exciting racing as well, because you have to be really creative of how you can win the race when it comes down to a matter of 1 or 2 seconds, as we saw 2 years ago between Grace Brown and Elisa Longo Borghini, yourself in 2018, Danny Rowe. You have to be very attentive throughout, because when you take a look at the bonus seconds that are available, you've got 10, 6 and 4 bonus seconds available at every stage finish. You've got 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds available at every intermediate sprint, and you've got 1 intermediate sprint every day. So if you miss one of those intermediate sprints, or you mess up, or you don't feature in a finish, that could be the difference between being on the podium of the general classification, winning the general classification, even being in the top 10, which is a huge thing in a UCI Women's World Tour race.
It is huge. That was me back in 2018, because I didn't feature in any single finish line in terms of those bonus seconds that were on offer. But because of the amount of intermediate seconds I took, meant that I was third on the podium. So happy days. And I mean, that's a great kind of focus to have throughout a stage race, to go for those intermediate sprints, and you never know where it might end you up on that GC. So yeah, the teams have got to try and look at their best possible ways to feature and to get the most out of the race, and sometimes that can be those intermediate sprint points. If they don't have those really fast finishers that can feature, if it does come down to a bigger or even smaller bunch sprint at the finish. We have a pan flat finish here today on the coast of Llandudno. So if this does come back together, I expect a big group coming into that final.
Let's see how it goes, because Lucy Harris, the new signing for the British UCI Continental Team Pro Noctis 200 Degrees, has flown the nest, and she's put in a great attack here. She's a real tenacious rider. She's been racing on the continent as well with the team. She only signed at the end of May with the team, so she's freshly into these colours of the team in red.
But that can give you more motivation as well, you know, when you've got fresh new kit, you're in a new team, that motivation to, you know, ride well, let the team know what you can do as a bike rider, that you are willing to put yourself out there to attack. So yeah, she's doing really brilliantly here. Like you said, she's been racing on the continent only, so it's a huge step up to be within this race. And also she'll be an unknown to the bigger teams, so you know you can't underestimate riders like this. And like I said before, it only takes one standout performance for a rider to be able to really show what they can do.
A standout performance, an unknown quantity to some, but for others they know the strength of Lucy Harris, a 30-year-old British rider. Great Britain national team in the white jerseys up towards the front. They come with an extremely strong team as well. You can see there Anna Henderson and Lizzie Dignan, Eleanor Barker, as well as Flora Perkins up towards the front.
I really hope Anna Henderson, gets some good luck in this race, because this is her second comeback now of 2024. She broke her collarbone in Setmana Valenciana at the start of the season, and then she came back. She did a couple of the Ardennes, and then she came into the Vuelta, second stage, broke her collarbone again, unfortunately, and now this is her first race back after that collarbone break in the Vuelta. So let's really hope for Anna Henderson that she has a good race here, because it can really knock the confidence as well of a rider when you do come down and you suffer a significant injury like that. Not just the confidence, but having to train and go back on the turbo trainer to watch your team race and have, you know, a lot of success. Have the team of Visma Lease Bike, who Anna Henderson of course rides for as her trade team. So she'll be really pleased to be back here and racing, because she really thrives off having a number on her back. She had a brilliant season last year. She'll be looking, of course, as well to that Olympic selection. The British team hasn't yet been announced, so another instrumental part of this team.
And we know the physical capabilities of Anna Henderson. Fourth place in the World Time Trial Championships last year in Glasgow, a silver medal in the European Championships. We know the strength of her, but how hard is that mentally to come back from injuries and in such quick succession of each other too?
Yeah, and that's what's the difference. I think, you know, it's not just one significant injury or crash, it's two within such quick succession, like you said there, Hannah. And it can really knock a rider. I mean, you kind of, I guess, think, when am I going to catch a break? But it is part and parcel of bike racing. Unfortunately, these crashes and the injuries that bike riders sustain. I think the importance is having a good team behind the scenes, and not just a team in terms of your own cycling team, but the team behind the scenes as to your partner, your friends, your family, who will be able to pick you up in moments like this within your cycling career, to be able to keep that smile on your face when you are on the turbo trainer, offer you just that little bit of, I guess, respite when you're coming back from an injury where you are having to, you know, put in hours and hours on the turbo, which can be so mind-numbing. But a rider like Anna Henderson, I'm sure, would have had that support. If you follow her on social media, I've seen recently she's been behind the motorbike trying to find those race legs again, which a lot of riders do if they've had a little bit of time out of racing, that motor pacing where you can kind of get that speed without the power that you have to put out. But yeah, it can be really tough to come back from. But Anna Henderson, I think, is one of the most resilient bike riders. Coming from downhill skiing, she's already one of the best bike handlers, one of the best descenders. So hopefully it wouldn't have knocked her confidence too much. Interestingly, heard an interview with Lizzie Dignan. She, of course, broke her arm in the Tour of Flanders at the beginning of the season. Coming back from that, she said she was actually quite nervous coming back into the peloton. I think it was her first break of her whole cycling career.
Which is incredible to think
really
of how
incredible.
long she's been a professional rider, and it was her first bone break. Let's have a look. It's Eleanor Backstead who is on bottle duty again.
Chris Newton looked very relaxed there, the director sportif in the car, so I don't think there'll be any stress there. Eleanor Backstead showing us what she does, race in, race out, offering her assistance to the team. Such a strong bike rider, huge engine. Eleanor Backstead, of course, daughter of Magnus Backstead. Such a cycling talented family, you would say. But yeah, Anna Henderson, I'm sure, will have no trouble in stepping back into this peloton.
If you're just joining us, welcome to the Lloyds Bank Stage 1 Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. We're racing from Welshpool to Llandudno, 142.4 kilometres, 2,276 metres of elevation. And we're seeing a great opportunity for a number of riders to go back to the team cars. Scarlett Sauren there, the 20-year-old rider from Volker Wessel's Women's Pro Cycling. Go back and take on some bottles. They've got riders up towards the front, patrolling our sole leader who is out front. That's Lucy Harris, the 30-year-old from Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee. She's got a handful of seconds, around 15 seconds of an advantage. And we've had a very animated race so far. Plenty of attacks from the very beginning. The first rider to really start to stretch the peloton out, that was Hayley Simmons of Dolcini O'Shea. Since then we had Josie Talbot, the former Oceania road race champion from Cofidis, be out in a solo move. That was then counter-attacked and we saw a group of Christine Majerus go clear. It all came back together. There was a hard pace set on the first Queen of the Mountain of the day. That was the categorised 1 climb over the top of the Llandudno. Several groups started to open up over the top of the Queen of the Mountain, and since we've had another breakaway, it all came back together, and it was this rider here, Lucy Harris, who now has 32 seconds on the peloton, who has a solo advantage. We're inside 60 kilometres to go. We're in the region of Gwynedd, the second largest county in Wales after Powys. A large proportion of this region are first language Welsh speakers. It's real the heartland of the language. Approaching 3 hours of racing and so much has happened here. The Great Britain national team up towards the front patrolling this move, as is Tennille Campbell of Liverloola Jaco. The Irish continental team, Torelli, they've got one rider up towards the front and they've got Kim Baptista a part of their squad.
Yeah, the peloton not too worried about this move, and generally if it's a solo rider, they'll be very, very confident that they'll be able to close this gap. And what it means is that for these bigger teams, hoping that it comes down to a sprint finish, it means it kind of just neutralises the race somewhat and stops any counter-attack. So actually it's conducive to have this solo rider out front for as long as possible. It means that there's no kind of counter moves happening if she was to be brought back. So you can see the Great Britain national team happy with this one. Strength in numbers towards the front as well.
They've got her in the sights, so they know she's not completely gone. She has 1, 2, 3 minutes and it's going to be a real difficulty to bring Lucy Harris back here. But this is also great for Lucy Harris and her team. That stage 1, she's here in her first ever UCI Women's World Tour race, first ever UCI Women's World Tour race for the team as a whole. She's made it into the breakaway, and that must be objective number 1 ticked off for them.
Absolutely. You know, to feature in this race, you know, we're saying it time and time again, for these smaller teams, it's not about just following. Put yourself out there, get your jersey on the screen. We're talking about her. It's a huge objective, and that's what has to be the objective for these smaller teams. There's races within the race. We've got the combativity prize, the award, where, you know, that rider of every day who's kind of deemed the most aggressive rider will be able to stand on the podium at the end of the day and take that prize. So this is huge, and she'll just be trying to kind of home in on her own power. A lot of the riders will have their power meter on their head unit. They'll know what they'll be able to kind of sustain for the entirety of the race when they're out there as a solo rider pushing their own win. So she'll be able to glance down at that, kind of be able to measure her effort being a solo rider. Of course, it would have been better to have riders with her, but now she's out there, it's kind of that all or nothing mentality. She's got to try and stay out there. We've got another Queen of the Mountains points coming up. There's points on offer, and then that might be then a focus for the team going forward. If she's already on that Queen of the Mountains leaderboard, that has to be the objective. So yeah, absolutely brilliant here from Lucy Harris and the team of Pro Noctis.
That next Queen of the Mountain, it's a Category 2, Tineclidiad, comes with 40.9 kilometres to go. So we just see one of the riders from Alba go back through the team cars currently. Talking of that combativity award, this is where you, the fans at home, can really get yourselves involved, because it's going to be presented to the most aggressive rider of the day. It's voted on the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain digital channels, so you can check out their social media as well for how and where you can vote for your most combative rider of the day. And of course, the winner of the overall combativity award for the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women will be decided by the race director, Rod Ellingworth. So a great opportunity for those, if you're not able to make it to the roadside to cheer the riders on, you can still have your involvement. You can be a deciding factor as to who will win each day and be on the podium, which doesn't only come with taking a trip to the podium, but of course some prize money too. So a really important prize. We've also got the Queen of the Mountains jersey that the riders will be battling it for over the next 4 stages, the Sprints jersey, and of course we've got our Green Leaders jersey for the rider who leads the overall general classification. That's the Green Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain jersey, and of course we've got our Best Young Rider jersey. So the rider who is 22 years of age or younger will be in the white jersey, whoever's highest in that general classification. All to play for, and each of these teams will come here with a plan of what they want to try and achieve here at the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Team SD Works Pro Time with Danish Dam had already outlined that they want to try and win all 4 stages. They want to try and go for the overall classification, but it's a question of who can stop them, who can really upset the apple cart.
I mean, I won't be betting against them, that's for sure. I mean, showing what they can do last week in Ride London was hugely impressive. But I think, you know, again, how to beat them comes down to the other teams and how to isolate them as, you know, as a team. You can't, if you want to win, you can't ride to their tactics. You have to put yourselves out there and do something different. You know, they set a really strong pace at Ride London. It's really hard to then animate the race if they're setting that strong pace, if they're always featured in a breakaway. What do you do? It could be set out as an objective to try and work against them. It could be deemed as negative potentially, but again, if you're coming into this race wanting to win, but the teams have got that common interest, then maybe it will put the others on a level playing field. If SD Works Pro Time miss a move, they're not in a break. I think personally, if I was in the other teams, I would say let's not ride. You know, let's put this all onto SD Works Pro Time. Try and upset the apple cart, make them chase. Try and take the energy out of the domestiques, the workers, to see if they can be beaten.
Well, it's not one of our World Tour teams who senses the danger with Lucy Harris, but it's Connie Hayes of Dolcini O'Shea who has decided for the 2nd time today that she wants to try and animate this race. Majerus is immediately into this move, as is Krista Dobell-Hickok of Humid Powered Health. One rider from the Great Britain national team is represented too. That looks like Millie Cousins. Tennille Campbell is there for Livalula Jaco. Is that Charlotte Cole of Team DSM Firmenich Post-NL who has found her way into this move? Josie Talbot is there, one of the animators of the stage earlier on. Now this could be an interesting move. If this is Charlotte Cole who has made it into this chasing group to Lucy Harris, she'll be the fastest rider amongst these riders here.
And it's also very clever because we've got that Queen of the Mountains point coming up. So not only is it kind of sliding room, but it's extra sliding room being in a break beforehand. So our next objective is that climb. They will take a 90-degree right-hand turn. We're just going to see a replay of this move now.
This was the moment that Connie Hayes of Dolcini O'Shea counter-attacks here. Immediate reaction from Krista Dobell-Hickok and Millie Cousins too. Majerus and Tennille Campbell reacting to this move.
Yeah, it's a really strong move. The riders will take a 90-degree right at 40.9 kilometres to go on to our next climb. It is a shorter climb at 3.3 kilometres at 3.4%. But again, for Charlotte Kool, she's putting herself in the best possible place on the road. Naturally, the pace will increase in the peloton as they get closer to that climb, of course.
One lone leader in Lucy Harris, who is out of sight for our chasers. And behind, this has caused a little bit of movement because once again, despite them being prominent in the front of the peloton, Saint-Michel Aubert 93 have missed this move.
Yeah, we saw that before, didn't we? And actually, I've just noticed it's Danique Hangeveld, the rider from Team DSM Firmenich Post-NL. So it's not Charlotte Kool here, number 16, Danique Hangeveld. So a really strong time trialist is Danique Hangeveld, just sitting back here and marshalling this breakaway that have got themselves off the front of the peloton here. A couple of the riders just missing turns, so a little bit disruptive. Danique Hangeveld, the rider, not going through here, so they have the core objective of getting Charlotte Kool to the line, being their leader.
Well, immediately they've opened up a large advantage. It's not the rider perhaps that Team DSM Firmenich Post-NL would want in that breakaway, but they know that they've got a rider represented. They know that if they don't work with this group here, that they can still protect Charlotte Kool behind. In this group then, we've got rolling through, it's Anna Kleineberg of Volker Wessels Women's Pro Cycling in that blue and white jersey. Rolling through there in the red and white jersey and flicking the elbow is Josie Talbot. Christine Majerus is there for Team SD Works Pro Time. Krista Dobell-Hickok for Human Powered Health. Tennille Campbell for Liv Alula Jaco. Millie Cousins for the Great Britain national team. Danique Hangeveld, who is on the back here, number 16 for Team DSM Firmenich Post-NL. On the left, the rider who was the main instigator of this move, that is Connie Hayes, the 23-year-old British rider of Dolcini O'Shea. They've got Ollie Moores and Colin Sturgis, a new recruit to their team and their management. Colin Sturgis, a former individual pursuit world champion during his career, a former professional, and used to be the sports director of Madison Genesis only a few years ago, so he has a wealth of experience that he's brought to the team, and clearly he's telling them to be aggressive, be attentive, and be right in the thick of the action.
Yeah, and like you said, was the instigator of this move, so absolutely brilliant, again, as one of the smaller teams to instigate a move like this, and it's a really strong breakaway. They're working together really cohesively. They're rolling through in that kind of through and off, and this is the start of the second Queen of the Mountains point, so it is a second categorised climb. So Lucy Harris has just come on to the categorised part of this climb.
Well, that'll be a memorable day at nursery for those young children, and of course everyone coming through this small hamlet. We're on to Tinaclediat, the second categorised climb of the day. It's a category 2 climb, 3.3 kilometres, average gradient of 3.4% as our breakaway reached the base of the climb. We'll crest the top with 37.6 kilometres to go.
What's really important at the top of this climb is it's a very, very fast, there's a left-hand turn at 33.8 kilometres to go that the riders will take. The top of the climb being 37.9 kilometres to go. It's 5 kilometres, extremely fast, narrow descent, so it's going to be really, really important to be well positioned into that descent as well. It could be even more critical than the Queen of the Mountains. So you just have to do your research coming into a race. You can use the likes of VeloViewer that we use as commentators to be able to see the nature of the roads and where the race could be won or lost. And it's not always on the climb, it's not always on these categorized sections. Yes, it does happen, but here I hope that a lot of these teams have got that as a critical point in the race, maybe on the stems of their handlebars, which a lot of riders will have tape and written on the key points to be well positioned, attentive, more focused, and this is definitely one of those points.
Well, you can just get a glimpse of the head unit of Lucy Harris there, the Wahoo head unit. You can also see the little white tape that Danny was just talking about of all the key points of the stage, including the Queen of the Mountains, perhaps where they've got feed zones for their riders. Gap a little over 30 seconds, 44 kilometres to go. The injection of pace behind, though, from Eleanor Barker of the Great Britain national team is about to bring all of this back together. They did have one rider represented in Millie Cousins, but perhaps that wasn't the tactic, the plan that they wanted to go with, to have that rider, the young British rider, in that breakaway, and everything's going to come all back together. And this is going to be the first time in a number of kilometres that they'll see Lucy Harris and have her in her sights. It's all back together in the chasing group and the peloton, with still one rider out front with a 30-second advantage. And Tennille Campbell decides that she wants to continue the pace on this climb.
She is indeed, and riders and teams without that sprinter almost running out of road. They have to use these opportunities, these climbs in the remainder of this race to ride aggressively, to try and establish a breakaway, to get themselves up the front, force the team of SD Worx Pro Time to chase if they want a chance of beating Lorena Wiebes or even Lotte Kopecky, who we've seen being looked after and given bottles by Lorena Wiebes earlier today, who was that integral lead-out woman, that last lead-out woman in Ride London on all three stages where Lorena Wiebes took the hat-trick. But it is Tennille Campbell who is closing down on Lucy Harris here, so it looks like the British rider from Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee is going to be caught here on this climb.
A tenacious effort from the 30-year-old British rider. Lucy Harris took her opportunity in her first appearance in a UCI Women's World Tour race. It's all back together on stage one of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Welshpool, we're heading for Llandudno, and Tennille Campbell has taken up the seat at the front and is setting the pace here. Danny Hangeveld in the wheel. There's Eleanor Barker with the yellow helmet on for the Great Britain national team. Christine Majerus is there. There's Charlotte Kool, who a little gap is just starting to open. She's come into the base of this climb in a good position. She's given herself that sliding room, and now you can really start to feel that there's a little bit more of a battle for position, where you want to be in the peloton. They know how crucial not only the climb is going to be here, but going over the top and that descent.
Yeah, really, really important. And for riders like Charlotte Kool, she will want that sliding room. You can see how hard this climb is being ridden with these riders coming out of the back. This is Jessica Finney from the Dolcini O'Shea team, number 104, just struggling under the pressure of how this climb is being ridden and the speed of Tennille Campbell on this climb. For Liv Alula Jaco, trying to really hurt the legs of these other riders and these teams. Letizia Paternoster, you would say, would benefit off a really hard race coming into the final as one of the best sprinters, but again going head to head with Lorena Wiebes. Can she match her? Team DSM, Pfeiffer Georgie, though, the British champion, now attacking.
On home roads, it's the British champion Pfeiffer Georgie who is wanting to try and set this race alive. Anna Henderson, on her return back to racing after breaking her collarbone for the second time this season, is right on the wheel, as is Lizzie Deignan, and it's giving Christine Majerus, the Luxembourgish champion, a hard time to try and bridge across here. Riders who are being distanced from the back, Celia Lemuel, who is going out the back for Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93. Also, it's Marion Bunel, who we saw very animated on the first Queen of the Mountain, but it's her team who are up towards the front and trying to get themselves in this move. Over the cattle grid, it's the world champion Lotte Kopecky who's bridging across, along with Ruby Roseman Gannon, and it looks as though it's Lorena Wiebes, the former European champion, who is just patrolling in that group behind, and knowing that she's got two teammates up there. this is a good move for SD Works Pro Time.
Yeah, it's a very good move, and it almost looked like she was running a little bit of polite interference at the front of that chasing group there, Lorena Vibes, but British riders, 500 metres to go to this Queen of the Mountains points. It is a Cat 2 climb, more points on offer. We saw Lizzie Deignan going for that Cat 1 climb, didn't we? But it is Anna Henderson setting the pace ahead of Pfeiffer Georgie, and Lizzie Deignan just gritting her teeth, as is Christine Margeroos.
On the first Queen of the Mountain of the day on Llandudno, it was Lizzie Deignan who took 8 points. The rider who took the 10 points was Heidi Franz, but she's not in the frame and she's not amongst this small group of riders currently. So it could be looking like Lizzie Deignan will be looking to try and take maximum points at the top of this Queen of the Mountain, the Category 2, that will offer 6 points.
Happy to set her own tempo here is Lizzie Deignan. She knows she's got teammate in Anna Henderson just sat behind her. Lotte Kopecky is there, that famous style of Kopecky, just taking a big deep breath.
Over the top of the Queen of the Mountain is Lizzie Deignan, the British rider who picks up the 6 points to add to her 8 points from the first Queen of the Mountain of the day. Anna Henderson adds 5 points to her collection and she gets herself and opens her account in the Queen of the Mountains competition.
This is where the dynamic of the race is really changing here, because Lotte Kopecky is within this group. So for SD Works Pro Time, they know she can win this bike race, being in a group of these riders. Letizia Paternoster, though, is also there. We know she's a fast finisher, as is, of course, the British rider Lizzie Deignan. So they'll be happy to sit back, the team of SD Works, with Kopecky up ahead. Just be interesting to see who is chasing. But we know we've got that really fast descent, that left-hand turn that the riders are about to make. Anna Henderson, we know, is an absolute demon descender, former downhill skier, of course.
We've got a real select group of riders going clear. 2 riders from Liv Jaco Alula, 2 riders from the Great Britain national team. We've got 2 riders from SD Works Pro Time, 1 rider from Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93. Let's have a little look at this replay, because Deignan was happy to set the tempo here. Anna Henderson right on the wheel.
You could see Anna Henderson almost dropping back slightly as they got closer to the Queen of the Mountains competition. But for these riders, they were happy not to contest almost. Let Lizzie Deignan take maximal points ahead of Anna Henderson teammate.
And you can see how exposed it is over the top of the moors here, and where the wind will be blowing onto the left-hand shoulder of the riders, making it incredibly difficult. That was confidence there from Lizzie Deignan. More points added in that Queen of the Mountains jersey, and virtually she is leading that competition.
And we haven't seen a victory from Lizzie Deignan since Paris-Roubaix in 2021. She's obviously had 2 children come back into the peloton as well. So really that inspirational figure for a lot of riders, that it is an opportunity to be able to start a family and come back into the sport. And it's clear that she's coming into her best form ahead of the summer that we've got, of course, at the Paris Olympics.
Behind it's the Great Britain national team and SD Works Pro Time, who look very happy with the situation that is up ahead. Likewise with Volker Wessels, you can see the little discussion there with Eleanor Backstead.
Yeah, just
almost
don't
a road
push on.
captain.
Yeah, she is, and she has got that experience, even though she is young. Eleanor Backstead, she's been within the team of Little Trek. She would have, you know, picked up these little pointers, and she's now kind of captaining that group behind in that peloton. Having 2 riders in Lizzie Deignan and Anna Henderson up here in the break, it's up to her just to be able to, I guess, marshal the rest of the girls in that team. So she was just, it looked like just signalling there, just to come off the gas a little bit, run that polite interference. Of course, you're not putting your brakes on at the front of the peloton, but you're not pushing on either. Very, very happy with this breakaway.
All good, Stuart.
Thanks for joining us for the first stage of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. We've had a very animated stage 1 from Welshpool. We're heading for the coast at Llandudno. We've got a strong breakaway of riders, including Lizzie Deignan, Pfeiffer Georgie, the British champion. We've also got Victoire Guillemon, Christine Majeras, Letizia Paternoster, Ruby Roseman Gannon, the world champion Lotte Kopecky. Also here is Aline Janssen from Volker Vessels, who you can see in that blue, white and black jersey. Anna Henderson is there on the return to racing after injury.
We're just on that 4 kilometre section here of undulation before the start of the descent, where they will take that left-hand turn. I believe this is it, coming up that left-hand fork where you can see those lead motorbike riders just ahead of the breakaway.
One thing that's always very apparent with British racing, and you'll know very well, Danny, even when you're descending, there's never really a time for respite. There's never really a time for recovery because of the nature of the roads, the grippy nature of the roads, and the attritional aspect of it. You still have to pedal down some of these descents. You don't get a free ride on the descent.
It's relentless, and also they're pretty technical because they are fast. So even though you might not be pedaling, you're still pretty stressed out. You know, you're having to focus 100% on the road ahead of you, the wheel in front of you, and that takes energy. You know, maybe not physiologically, but psychologically, these races are really, really hard. There's never any respite. You have to be attentive, you have to be focused. It can be very unpredictable as to when the race is going to split, when the dynamic of the race is going to change. You always need to have teammates or riders up towards the front to marshal what's going on here. So yeah, it makes for really, really tough racing in the UK.
And particularly when you're in the country roads. I mean, we're right in the heart of the countryside here, where ordinarily there's a lot of farming in this region. There's a lot of wool trade traditionally from back in the past. It's difficult to manage, especially when you can't see the roads up ahead. As you say, you've got to be very attentive. You've got to have perhaps taken some knowledge from local riders. If you've got someone who's been able to do a recon of a stage, as we spoke about before, Grace Lister was able to do that, a local rider to stage 1. But it's about looking ahead at what's to come also, because you see the undulations as you descend down and the high hedgerows.
Yeah.
1 minute and 14 is the advantage
it's a really
for this
good
group.
gap. It's a really good gap, and that's all down to the composition and the peloton being happy ultimately with the composition of these riders and these teams. And there's not one big team that have missed out on this move, hence the way that the peloton are riding behind, all stretched out along the entirety of the road. And here is this descent that we were talking about, incredibly fast, twisty and narrow, and this is where descending skills really come into play. It's not just about how you climb, it's also how well you descend, the bike handling skills of these riders.
It's also the dappled light. You see the sunlight. We've got a beautiful day here, which is just fantastic for stage 1 and really bringing in traditional British weather for the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain women. But of course, that dappled light coming through the trees, it's difficult when you're descending as well, and you might not know the road. It's narrow. It's around just over one width of a car. You can see just at the back here, it's Aline Janssen, the Dutch rider of Volker Vessels, who's just leaving a little gap to the wheel in front in Pfeiffer Georgie.
She is indeed, and this is around 5 kilometres in length, this descent as well. So it's pretty long, and it could cause a few gaps as well. But like you said, Hannah, this dappled light, it almost makes it look like it's kind of wet and dry patches on the road, which can be extremely dangerous and can really kind of catch you off guard, especially if you're going around a corner and it looks dry but it's actually wet. So yeah, it takes a lot of homework, inside information, potentially a few recce's from some of the riders, especially if of course they're British and live locally. It definitely is advantageous to know these sorts of roads.
Advantageous for these riders in the breakaway on this descent, because behind for the peloton, they'll be grappling for position to make sure that they go into this descent in a good position, that they have the control of the speed, the tempo that is set up towards the front.
It's also extremely fast, so you can see there's not actually many turns on this descent, which, you know, makes it not technical but technical because it is so fast. And if you don't know what's coming, you're almost anticipating a corner coming up, and it might mean that you just touch the brakes momentarily. Some riders actually use their kind of a GPX file in their head units to look at the severity of a descent, and it will be able to show them the twists and turns that they've got coming up, let them know how much they need to brake, how much speed they need to scrub off before the next corner on a descent. I remember actually in the past speaking to Alex Dowsett, a former male professional rider, of course, who won a stage of the Giro in the time trial, and he said to me that he believed that he won because he had the course on his GPX file. It's a really wet day, and he was able to take the corners at a faster speed because he knew that in front of him it wasn't such a tight corner. So it's just all these little marginal gains that we talk about that can make a huge difference to a rider's performance, especially when the strength and depth of a peloton now is so high.
The gap has grown over 1 minute. The Madison neutral service car has been able to be pulled in behind this breakaway of riders. We got the results of the second Queen of the Mountain up to Tina Cladiat. It was Lizzie Deignan who took the 6 points there ahead of her national teammate Anna Henderson. Lotte Kopecky taking the 4 points in that Queen of the Mountain ahead of Christine Majerus. Taking the 2 points, that was Letizia Paternoster ahead of Pfeiffer Georgie. No more Queen of the Mountains on stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. There still is the one and only intermediate sprint of the day. That will come at Dal Corog.
Sorry, that car frightened me a little bit then, just coming from the rider's left-hand side. So thankfully they could see the riders coming. But yeah, like you say, Hannah, one sprint coming with 20.2 kilometres to go and 3:02.1 seconds on offer there as well.
And you see the marshals at the roadside as well. They know there's a potential danger over that humpback bridge there, just giving them the warning to shed some speed at that point as they're at the bottom. And Paternoster, Letizia Paternoster, is soaking up all of the atmosphere here on stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. The school children are thriving, they're enjoying it, they're finding some inspiration too. Something that has always been iconic in British racing.
And this is what's so special about our sport, isn't it? It's kind of a free spectacle. You can get so close to these riders on the sides of the roads, past front doors, past schools, nurseries that we've seen. And I just love those schools being out, maybe in their break or missing double maths. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? To be able to come out and watch a few seconds of this bike race. But for the riders, like you mentioned there, Hannah, Letizia Paternoster, just waving to the school children, it'll be something that those young children remember for years and years.
But this is also something that with British Cycling and the organisation, they'll organise with all of the local schools, because you see coming past here, they've made flags, they're ready, they're well prepared. This is not just they've seen the race come past in the playground. This is a real opportunity to inspire the next generation of potential riders, and whether they become a rider or not, this is a great way to get them inspired, watching sport and seeing some of the world's best professional riders here come past their school.
Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, and British Cycling would have been in touch with the local schools as well to let them know. And it's Olympic year, so that changes things. Maybe a lot of the schools will have projects for the children to learn about the Olympics, the history of the Olympics, who to watch out for, the different events as well. So it is a huge spectacle. You know, the flags were out, the riders were throwing their bottles to the sides of the road there, so the children, one of them will have a very lucky day in being able to take that home. But you never know what that might do to that individual, and it might be that is one of the superstars of the future being inspired by this very day.
By a very small souvenir that they can take away into the professional riders. This is just part and parcel of their job. It's a bottle, they use it to fuel their body, to rehydrate themselves, but to individuals who might be on the receiving end to collect bottles at the roadside, it could be a life-changing moment. Jo Tinley has decided that she wants to try and use her descending skills, her forte as a rider, to try and bridge across to this move. It's going to be a tall ask. It's going to be a big ask of the British rider. But we've seen how tenacious the team has been so far, and if she can use the descent to her advantage, a little bit of discussion here between Christine Majerus, the Luxembourgish champion, and the world champion Lotte Kopecky.
Yeah, again, you've got to be pretty clever in a breakaway like this, especially as you're getting closer and closer to the finish line with an established breakaway now and over 2 minutes. You know, we're looking at advantage breakaway, you would say, especially with the riders that we've got in this group. So for Lotte Kopecky and Christine Majerus there, they would have just had a little word as to their tactic now on the road. We've talked about how you need an A, B, C, D tactics coming into any bike race, and the nature of the tactics that are played out on the road. But now we've got this scenario. It's about them working out between themselves their best chances. So I'm sure Lotte Kopecky will go for those intermediate seconds. Christine Majerus will do her best in leading her out, as I'm sure will Lizzie Deignan, who will be the protected rider for the British national team.
You spoke earlier on, Danny Rowe, of just how important these bonus seconds are. And at the moment, with an advantage of 2 minutes and 2 seconds to the peloton, we're coming up to 3.5 hours of racing, 33 kilometers to go. This is really going into the favour of the breakaway, but it only goes into the favour of the breakaway if they continue to work together, continue to have that cohesion.
Yeah, and it's quite a big group. You would say, you know, I guess the perfect number for a breakaway would maybe be 5-6 riders, where you can kind of marshal how much work everyone is doing. No rider can kind of duck and dive, but also contribute to keeping the speed as high as possible. This is a big group, so yes, they can share the workload, but what we can be attentive to here is any riders just maybe skipping a turn here and there, being a little bit clever, going back to the team car, because when the gap gets over a minute, the team cars will be able to assist the riders in the breakaway. So we'll have the team cars of every team that are featured in this breakaway now behind them if the rider needs that assistance, whether they get a puncture or want to go back to the car for any fuel, if their Swanniers on now on the side of the road. So it is a pretty big group, but now all rolling through and sharing that workload in hand. But between the teams with multiple riders, they will know who the protected rider is in quotation marks, and they will just be able to kind of do a little bit less work than the others. So it might be that when they get to the front, again, not putting the brakes on, of course, they want this to go all the way to the line, but just tapping through and not pressing on, really kind of pushing the pace, as it were, riding cleverly, taking on the fuel as well, and choosing their moment to come back through the group. So Letizia Paternoster, you can see just stretching her back a little bit, and you can see her just skipping a turn there. So very clever riding from the Italian Letizia Paternoster, skipping a turn here and there. She is, of course, isolated, being the only Liverlula Jaco. There is two, sorry, in Ruby Roseman Gannon, the Australian champ, but it looks like Ruby Roseman Gannon is just leaving a little gap as well. So clever riding from the two Liverlula Jaco riders.
Nine riders in the breakaway. Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, Christine Majerus, Lizzie Deignan and Anna Henderson, both of the British national team. Letizia Paternoster, Ruby Roseman Gannon from Liverlula Jaco, Aline Janssen from Volker Vessels, Pfeiffer Georgie, the only rider represented, but she's the British champion from Team DSM Firmenich Post-NL, and Victoire Gilman, who is just in your picture here in the yellow and orange jersey of Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93, the rider with number 64 on her back, the 28-year-old. 3 teams represented in this breakaway with 2 riders. Behind, it's Cofidis, who have been so animated throughout the stage today, who have missed it. Josie Talbot up towards the front. Life Plus Wahoo, despite them being very attentive, particularly in the first half of the stage, they've missed the move. And of course, they came with perhaps big ambitions with Babette van der Wolf. They also had Heidi Franz, who was animated, Alicia Gonzalez. There's still of the 16 teams who are here, there's teams who have missed this breakaway, and for them, as we're heading into the final 30 kilometres of the stage, surely it's now or never where you really need to start to make inroads to that 2-minute advantage of the breakaway.
Yeah, you can see the cars going through now. So for the riders in the breakaway, their team cars will now be able to get into that gap. They will be able to be directly behind them to be able to assist them if they do run any problems. Now you can see the Great Britain national car coming through. Again, I would not want to be driving any of these cars coming through the peloton. It's really important that the riders respect the race organisers, and they will be told that the cars will be coming through to stick to one side of the road, but sometimes riders use that as an advantage to be able to move up in the peloton, but really important that they move to one side so the race cars can roll through. But like you said, Hannah, yes, it's kind of now or never that those teams that have missed it kind of come together as one, use a couple of their riders to really try and put the pressure on to close this gap now. There are a couple of little launch pads towards the final with around 16.5 kilometres to go. There's one just under 3 kilometres at 3%, and also with about 12.5 kilometres to go, an 800-metre rise. So one that could be used by riders in the breakaway who don't want it to come down to a sprint. I'm looking at the likes of Pfeiffer Georgie potentially, because she won't want to take this one to the line, but also those riders behind to really ignite the pressure and try and close this one.
What would Cofidis be looking to try and achieve here? They're the team who've taken it up at the front to try and bring things back, and as I said before, they've been very prominent throughout the stage. Who would they be looking to try and work for to deliver a result today?
I think if we look at the roster of riders, like you mentioned, Josie Talbot was the first protagonist, wasn't she, in the first breakaway of the day. But I'd say potentially Sarah Roy, the Australian. She's taken her first win in a couple of years in a stage of the Bretagne Ladies Tour, so she's clearly coming back into good form. She's very happy in this team. I've actually spoken to Sarah Roy personally, and she said that she feels like it's a real family and she's being supported as an individual rather than just a rider that perhaps was her feeling in the past, and that can be so powerful. We talk about happy head, fast legs. This is the sprint point, so 1 kilometres to go now until this intermediate sprint point. This will be hotly contested.
We're heading to the intermediate sprint, the one and only intermediate sprint on stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. This comes with points for the red jersey, but also crucially 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds for the overall general classification, with riders in this breakaway of 9 riders who will be trying to feature in the general classification at the end of the 4 days. These bonus seconds will be crucial. At the front of the peloton, though, it's still Life Plus Wahoo and Cofidis who are sharing that workload. Is the stage riding away from them, and will our stage winner come from this group? Ruby Roseman Gannon, the Australian champion, on the left-hand side, just trying to move up. Will there be some communication to Paternoster seamlessly? Paternoster gets onto the wheel of Ruby Roseman Gannon.
Lizzie Deignan going side to side with Lotte Kopecky, who is going to be led out by Christine Margeroos here. So they're taking things into their own hands. Lizzie Deignan, though, looking for Anna Henderson, who's on the wheel of Deignan. So is Anna Henderson going to go for these intermediate sprint points?
Victoire Guillemont starts to accelerate, but at the front it's Lizzie Deignan who's shoulder to shoulder with the world champion Kopecky. Kopecky, who is being challenged here by Letizia Paternoster, is going to be close on the line. Looks like from the this shot from the back, it's Paternoster who takes the 4 points in the red jersey and takes along with it the 3 bonus seconds. 2 bonus seconds to Lotte Kopecky.
Really impressive sprinting again by Letizia Paternoster there to take maximum 3 seconds. So a job done in those intermediate sprint points. A little pat on the back, yeah, from teammate Ruby Roseman Gannon.
Talk me through how this unfolds, because it's shoulder to shoulder here with Duignan and Kopecky.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Lizzie Duignan was really in the wind early alongside Lotte Kopecky, but Letizia Paternoster was very, very patient. She sat on the wheel of Kopecky and used her moment to launch on the right-hand side. So for me, Lizzie Duignan went a little bit early. It was kind of interesting to their tactic there because we saw Anna Henderson also sprinting. So whether she was trying to maybe take seconds away for Lizzie Duignan, I'm just not quite sure there.
Pfeiffer Georgie picking up the last remaining point and bonus second, the British champion, displaying the British champion's colours on home roads. Lotte Kopecky looking for the team car, just talking into the radio.
Yeah, you can see by her body language that she's got a little bit of a problem. Just looking over her right-hand shoulder, talking into the radio, taking a bottle. Doesn't look like she's got a puncture, but maybe she just wants to go chat to the director sportif, who'll be able to come and assist her. Take bottles, maybe it's just the fueling. Looks like it is. So just taking a bottle from the car, able to have a little bit of a chat, a gel as well, maybe a caffeine gel at this moment in time.
Well, of course, let's not forget as well that feeding will close at some point. So if they've not got another feeding point in terms of the Swan Years at the roadside.
Look how relaxed she is. I mean, just riding no hands. She's just always rides with so much composure, doesn't she? She's a real classy bike rider. She's done that World Champions jersey proud.
She certainly has. She certainly has. 4 victories this season alone. It's been impressive. As we get the confirmation of the results, Letizia Paternoster takes the 3 bonus seconds and the 4 points in the red jersey, ahead of Lotte Kopecky and Pfeiffer Georgie. And of course, points available for that red jersey on stage finishes too. 12, 8, 6, 4, 2 points available for the first 5 riders at the finish line.
Alice Wood on the front here for the Human Powered Health team. Another team, of course, that have missed the breakaway. Human Powered Health, no riders represented.
They're the only World Tour team that have missed this move. Is the onus now on them to start to contribute? Because for them, this is
Absolutely
a big moment for them. They've, of course, got Marit Rijmakers for a finish. Alice Wood clearly being put to work. There's a little bit of discussion behind by Hayley Simmons of Dolcini O'Shea.
And it's not just a one-day race, is it? Of course, we've got 4 stages, so it's not just the stage that's slipping out of their hands, but also the general classification. With a gap like this, with less than 20 kilometres to go, we've been through that sprint point here. You can see, look at this, I love this, between the riders, a real pat on the back to Ruby Rosamund Gannon and Letizia Paternoster. It's just going to breed that confidence that the Italian has got. You would say she is now the favourite coming into this finish line, even with Lotte Kopecky here. She's got that speed, she's got that explosive power, has Letizia Paternoster, but not only that, that confidence and belief in her own ability, which I believe has really made the difference this year.
But it seems as though they've really gelled as a unit. And it seems that all of the riders, the way that they can almost work together without having to verbally communicate. And we saw that leading into that intermediate sprint with Ruby Rosamund Gannon, where Paternoster immediately got onto the wheel. The gap, the blackboard just being shown there at 2 minutes and 50 seconds, inside 20 kilometres to go. This is advantage breakaway.
Yeah, we normally look at that kind of 1 minute per 10 kilometres of racing as a gap that is able to be closed down if you've got a concerted chase behind. So it's definitely advantage breakaway with nearly 3 minutes with only 20 kilometres to go. And it is a pretty much a flat run into the final. I said, didn't I? We've got a little bit of a rise with 16.5 kilometres to go and a kind of launch pad with just over 12 to go. But other than that, we're running down to our seaside finish in Llandudno, where it is a flat run to the line. It's not a hugely technical finish. We've got a couple of twists and turns, a hard right with just over 2 kilometres to go, and then a couple of right-handers at just over 1k, and then an immediate left onto a straight 1 kilometre run into the line. So nothing too technical for the riders to contend with, but absolutely it looks like it's going to be one for the breakaway today.
Hess Pro Cycling want a slice of the cake too, and they want to try and contribute to this chase as the Peloton leave Dolgarrog. The legend has it that this village got its name from the flying dragon called Igarrog, that mythical beast that preyed on livestock, and Dolgarrog was the site of its favourite meadow. But in Welsh, Dol means water meadow, Carrog means torrent. A number of streams that are running towards Conway Valley, the area that we're heading towards now too. So it's also home to the Indoor Adventure Centre, the Zip World Conway, which I have to say looks a lot of fun.
I know, I'd love to give that a go.
One for post-stage.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm sure these riders will thrive off that sort of adrenaline, and they'd love to give that sort of thing a go. So if you get the opportunity, make sure you give it a try.
Holiday in North Wales. Sounds beautiful with all of this countryside. Inside the final 20 kilometres on stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. 3 hours and 40 minutes of racing on this 142.4 kilometre stage. We've got 18 kilometres remaining, 9 riders in the breakaway, the wind blowing onto the left-hand shoulder. We've got 4 teams who are taking up the chase at the front. Life Plus Wahoo in that lime green and purple jersey. We've got Josie Talbot in the red and white jersey of Cofidis. Human Powered Health have put 1 rider up towards the front. And Hess Cycling have been contributing with 2 riders, one of the invited continental teams from Great Britain. Meanwhile, these 9 riders are working well together. They've got great cohesion. We've got 3 teams represented with 2 riders. That's Lizzie Dignan and Anna Henderson for the Great Britain national team. We've got 2 riders from SD Works Pro Time in Lotte Kopecky and Christine Majeras. We've got Ruby Roseman Gannon and Letizia Paternoster from Liv Alula Jaco. Then the other riders, the British champion Pfeiffer Georgie, Victoire Gilman and Aline Janssen. Can they upset the peloton behind and turn things around?
Yeah, I mean, I think this break now is going to go all the way to the line. It's really hard to see past that with the gap that we were just shown in nearly 3 minutes.
What has to happen, though, for the peloton to have a second opportunity at being in a chance with a stage victory?
These riders are looking at each other, ultimately playing the game, and just kind of upsetting that cohesion that we talked about. They're working, all riders are rolling through, sharing that workload, but ultimately it's going to be really, really tough because of the riders that we've got in this group and the strength and depth between, you know, the riders in this breakaway for the Life Plus Wahoo team, for Cofidis, for Human Powered Health, the teams that we've talked about in missing out on this break. You've got 9 riders here being able to share that work. If we were talking about less riders in the breakaway, then maybe it would be an opportunity. But here, I just can't see it happening. With only 17 kilometres to go, you're talking about, what, 20 minutes of racing? You know, the motivation for the riders in the break is going to be huge to get to the line here, not just for the stage, for that overall general classification as well. So it's a really tough position to be in. You just saw Alice Wood there just swinging off, and there is now another rider for Human Powered Health coming to help. But I think if I was that team, I'd have the whole team on the front here, because it's rolling away, but the speed's obviously there. You can see a few riders just struggling under the pressure of the peloton, so they're not going down without a fight.
The pace is on at the front. Abby Plowman, the rider from Alba Development Road Team, who is being distanced, the British rider, the 25-year-old. Where does the call come from for Human Powered Health? If you're thinking that the whole team should be on the front, and from other teams too, perhaps Cofidis, perhaps Life Plus Wahoo, ultimately, where does that call come from? Is it the road captain, one of the riders? Is it more the sports director? Where does the main information communication direction come from?
It would be the director sportif in this instance. I think, one, they'd be very, very disappointed having missed this break. As you mentioned, they're the only World Tour team that aren't featured in this break now. So the onus is really on them to have riders up front. But look, you could see they're on their knees. It's been such a hard day, so it's easier said than done to be able to have all of your team on the front chasing as well, because there's riders being dropped. You could see the grimaces on their faces. These sorts of roads, absolutely relentless. So they are trying, but you can just see how much it's taking out of these athletes.
gritted teeth. It's Katia Ragusa from Human Powered Health who is trying to contribute to this pace, and behind there's a lot of tired legs here. Lana Castreek, the newly crowned Belgian gravel champion for Cofidis, who is trying to add some contribution. They've brought the time gap down 15 seconds, 2 minutes and 34 now, but still the road isn't flat. It still continues to rise. You still have the attritional roads as Krista Dobell-Hickok comes to the front for the only World Tour team that's not represented in that breakaway.
Yeah, she's the strongest climber, you would say, for Human Powered Health, the American, who again has had a very turbulent career, ups and downs, crashes and significant injuries to come back from. So one of her first races for this season as she's come over to Europe from America. And this was the section of road that I was talking about, that 16 kilometres to go with a couple of K at around 3%. But the breakaway have now got over that. So they've got one more little rise, 12.5 K to go, 800 metres at 4%. So I would expect someone to try something. You know, if we look at these riders in this breakaway and how quick Letizia Paternoster was on that intermediate sprint, Lotte Kopecky, of course. Pfeiffer Georgie, I did say about maybe trying something, but she was sprinting well then. And we saw that in Paris-Roubaix, didn't we, where she took that brilliant third spot on the podium. So it might be that she's actually going to back herself here in a sprint finish.
After an attritional race, it seems that's where Pfeiffer Georgie really thrives. And of course, she doesn't have the luxury of having a teammate within that breakaway there. She's really having to think for herself, how can she win this race? Likewise for Aline Janssen of Volker Wessel. She's never won a professional bike race in her career. This is a big moment for her, and of course another rider who doesn't have a teammate in that breakaway. It's that 2 versus 1. Is there any perhaps cohesion that can come together from Pfeiffer Georgie, a little bit of discussion between her and Janssen?
Perhaps, but what I would say is it can be an advantage to be isolated in this position, because the teams with multiple riders, so for SD Works, for Liverlula Jayco and the British national team, you will always be looked at to do more work if you've got more riders. And for those individual riders, with Pfeiffer Georgie, for example, she will just be able to duck and dive a little bit and just keep out of sight somewhat, not do too much on the front, really ride cleverly. And that is something that Pfeiffer Georgie can do. She's a very instinctive bike rider. She's a masterful tactician. She knows what to do in this sort of situation. So I don't doubt her tactics at all here. And like you said, Hannah, she comes into her own at the end of a really hard bike race. And that's what sets some riders apart. It's not always about who can sprint the fastest. If you put them on the road and get them to sprint for a 200-meter stretch of road, it's who is able to do that after that accumulative fatigue, who's been able to tolerate that workload on such a hard day, undulating, attritional, relentless day. And Pfeiffer Georgie is definitely one of those riders.
In the intermediate sprint, it was Paternoster who got the better of Lotte Kopecky. Do you think that might have been a little bit of a wake-up call for the world champion, knowing the speed, the zip of Paternoster and how crucial those seconds were? Or do you think it was just open up the legs, get some bonus seconds, get some points on the leaderboard, and put the eggs into the basket of the finale?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Lotte Kopecky, she would have gone full hog there for that intermediate sprint, because it is those seconds that can be vital in the GC. And looking at the roster of SD Works, it looks to me that Lotte Kopecky is their leader for the GC for this tour. I don't know if it's kind of wake-up call. I think she knows the attributes of Letizia Paternoster and how well she's going over this season, especially they come head-to-head on the track, let's not forget as well. But it would have given Letizia that motivation, that confidence that she is quick and she maybe has got the upper hand here coming into the finish. They're going to have to play it well, time it to perfection. It is a tailwind finish, a roaring tailwind along the coast of Llandudno as well. They take that last left-hand turn, with 1 kilometre to go, and it's a block tailwind at around 25 kilometres an hour. So it just means that the riders are able to open up their sprint slightly earlier than if it was into a headwind.
Behind in the peloton, they haven't given up the chase. It's the Irish UCI Continental team in Torelli with that light blue and faded purple jersey who are on the front. It seems as though the teams that were formerly on the front have realised that it's going to be the day of the breakaway. They're wasting a lot of energy being on the front, knowing that the breakaway are going to succeed here. So there's no human-powered health up towards the front. Cofidis have left the front of the peloton, and that's given way to some of those continental teams who perhaps still believe or want to be seen to be up towards the front and showing that they can do something.
Yeah, absolutely, and why not? But it's a really tough position to be in, actually, especially if you've missed the break and you can see that time gap just creeping up and creeping up. You can see kind of heads are dropping now in this position. It's really hard, and after this stage it's going to be a tough transfer to the hotel. You know, you'll have that team meeting where the questions will be asked: where were you, why didn't you make it into this breakaway? And then again trying to reset for day 2, and that's about, you know, trying to almost forget about stage 1 and what went wrong, resetting as to what your best chances on day 2, 3 and 4 here. We're just going to go past 10 kilometers to go now, so this is a big sign that the finish line is coming closer and closer for these riders now as they just twist down this descent.
10 kilometres to go in the first stage of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. 9 riders in the breakaway. They're heading for the finish line and right on the promenade in Llandudno. On the back, we've got the Australian champion, one of 4 national champions on the start line. 2 of them are here in this breakaway. Christine Majerus, 3 of them are in this breakaway. In Christine Majerus, Ruby Roseman Gannon and Pfeiffer Georgie. In the rainbow jersey, it's Lotte Kopecky as Paternoster just rolls through with Aline Janssen on the wheel.
Breakaway of riches here, you would say, wouldn't you, with these national champions, the world champs jersey, Lizzie Deignan as well, another school.
And what a treat to be seeing these champions pass by.
Yeah, it can be deafening, actually, the screams as well of the school children as they get so excited. But yeah, they will be very, very welcomed by the riders.
We pass by Conway Castle. Conway, a UNESCO heritage site. They pass through some of these narrow pinch points into this old village.
That's another advantage of being in the breakaway, you know, when it does become narrow, twists and turns, being able to take your own lines, not have to fight for that position.
Pass by on the right-hand side, that 13th century Conway Castle. Part of that heritage site is the first of Edward I's iron ring in Conwy. Castles that are stood in the northwest coast of Wales. The formidable walls run for 3/4 of a mile. They pass through 22 towers, and it's UK's best preserved medieval town. The walls are the most intact in Europe, in fact. We pass over the bridge, connecting from one part of North Wales to another. Spectacular views of Conwy Castle there, right onto that bridge. This is Thomas Telford's suspension bridge, the industrial heritage designed to fit in with the backdrop of that medieval fortress. This is where we go from those narrow roads in Conwy, and it starts to open things up now because we're onto main roads. It's a little wider, perhaps plays into the hands of the peloton behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit more exposed in this part too.
It is indeed. It just meanders now around the coast before they come into that seaside promenade. That pretty much pans straight 1 kilometre to go here, but for the breakaway now, they need to be attentive and stay focused and keep working hard, because we do see time gaps come down incredibly hard if the peloton behind are chasing. It's SD Works on the front now. They know that it's a little bit technical through this section, so they won't be pressing on, but they're just keeping themselves out of trouble here.
Lenich Keeney just guides her team into one of the pinch points as they enter Conwy.
just shows the experience of those riders and the fact that they do know what's coming up ahead as well. So even though they're not chasing, of course, having both Lotte Kopecky and Christine Majerus in this breakaway, they know that they need to stay out of trouble on that twisty descent through Conwy.
Still, though, the breakaway are unawares of what's going on behind, and of course still the fight for position, fight for placings still on a stage. We've still got the cohesion. Now it's Dash Hutchinson, Brother UK, who decide inside the final 10 kilometres they've still got something left in the tank, and one rider feels as though that they could try and take, if the breakaway goes to the finish line, this could be a 10th place finish as the gap goes out to 3 minutes and 22 seconds. This is advantage breakaway, but there's still all to play for behind.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to come back now, but there's points up for grabs. It's a World Tour race, let's not forget. And so for, yeah, especially the smaller teams, the British riders, where there is more pressure on the shoulders of these riders coming into this race, a top 10 would be a huge result. So if that's their best opportunity, then why not give it a shout? Lucy Lee, happy birthday. I believe it's her birthday as well. So what a birthday present that will be, a top 10. I think she'd be really pleased with that one.
Turns 26, potentially a top 10 finish on stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour Britain Women. A top 10 finish in a World Tour stage. That's not a bad birthday present to yourself, is it?
No, definitely not. So she'll be in full time trial mode now. You can see a little bit of pressure now perhaps coming out of this breakaway group. Now they're confident that they've got that time in hand.
But they can afford to do that, surely. Yeah. They can start to look at each other now, knowing that they've got almost close to 3.5 minutes of an advantage. They know that they can really start to think how they can win the stage here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got over 3 minutes and we're under 10 kilometres to go. So they have got that time in hand to be able to play the game. And you can see that the speeds really come out here. It'll be interesting to see what teams, what riders, potentially going to try something before that finish.
It's almost like an opportunity when it gets to this point of riders able to size each other up. Who's looking fatigued? Who's looking fresh? Who's looking strong?
Who's laying off?
Who's laying off? I mean, we've seen on a couple of occasions Anna Henderson just leave a little gap.
Yeah, this looks like she's going to launch an attack here on the drops of her handlebars, just laying off. So let's see what the British rider and Anna Henderson does. Just getting out the saddle. It's a fast section of road here. So Lotte Kopecky is setting a fast speed. Christina Majerus just coming backwards just to marshal this group. She'll, of course, want to try and keep this one together for Lotte Kopecky. So doing the right thing in coming back, being able to keep all eyes on this group. Anna Henderson does look like she's sizing up for something here. Just missing turns, but also laying off slightly.
Could this be tactically try and save the legs for the sprint, follow, keep yourself out of the viewing space within that group? Because on such a fast section of road, it's going to be incredibly hard to try and get away, surely.
I'd be surprised if this isn't for Lizzie Deignan, for Anna Henderson. Potentially, yes, but I would be surprised if we don't see a move from Anna Henderson. We know how strong she is in the time trial. We mentioned earlier how she'd featured in the World Championships in the time trial discipline as well. She really comes into her own. So I would say she's going to try something in this final 5K. If she's got the legs, of course. You know, she's coming back from that second collarbone break of the season. So it might be that she's actually just suffering at this moment.
Is it suffering? Is it planning a big attack? Is she saving herself for the finish on the promenade in Llandudno? Through 5 kilometres to go, and Lucy Lee is still the sole chaser. The birthday girl, turning 26 on stage 1 here, is trying to take a top 10 finish on a stage of a UCI Women's World Tour race. We see a little bit of the cohesion lost in the leading group of 9. They know they've got time to play with. They know they've got the advantage over the peloton behind. Who has the legs to try and deliver a stage victory in Llandudno? Kopecky starts to tighten the shoes, starts to prepare herself for that finale.
Always a telltale sign, isn't it? The tightening of the shoes. Just get a little bit looser throughout the stage. Your feet swell and they get hot in your shoes as well. So just tightening those shoes to try and get maximal power through the pedals in that sprint finish. Also that kind of psychological advantage that you're getting set up ready for the final. Lotte Kopecky so experienced in this sort of position as well. So she'll stay cool, calm and collected to stay focused as we get closer and closer to the line. Anna Henderson now coming through and she's found Lizzie Deignan. So they're now working as a pair. We see the teams, Lotte Kopecky without Christine Margeroos currently. She's sat behind, but we will see her come into the fore to guide Lotte Kopecky in the final.
A brief moment of communication between Deignan and Henderson. Who will be the big leader for the Great Britain national team? Will Lizzie Deignan try and challenge for the stage victory? Will it be Anna Henderson? And of course, in the history of the race, Lizzie Deignan has won stages, 3 stages of what was formerly the Women's Tour. Lorena Wiebe is leading that standings with 5 stage victories as the breakaway passed through 3 kilometres to go. And now the group has split. 3 riders have just found themselves on the wrong end of a break. Gilman just having to close the gap here. Henderson on the wheel. There's Pfeiffer Georgie. This is starting to be a telltale. Perhaps some tired legs, a bit of fatigue.
Yeah, a few games as well being played. So we can just see a little move from Christine Margeroos. So teams, riders need to be attentive to this. Lizzie Deignan now forced to close the gap. Ruby Roseman Gannon straight on it in those Australian national colours, as is Lotte Kopecky as they take this right-hander. So this is a hard right, 2.3 kilometres-ish to go now that I've worked out. And then the riders will take a right and a right again at around 1.3 kilometres and then that straight run into the line.
You have that little fork in the road where you bear to the left and then you've got the wind right behind you. A roaring tailwind onto the promenade in Llandudno.
Christine Margeroos setting the pace, keeping it high, putting off any attacks from the other teams. Last ditch attempts. It looks like it's going to be setting up for a fast finish here. An attack now though from Anna Henderson, the British rider.
Anna Henderson takes her opportunity and she goes on the right-hand side of the road. She's been out for just over 4 weeks with a second collarbone break of the season, but it's the British rider who takes things up. An immediate reaction from Ruby Roseman Gannon. Also there is Christine Majerus who follows the wheel, and the British champion Pfeiffer Georgie, who's looking for her first victory of the season, is there in the British champion's colours. Just rolling herself back onto the wheel is the world champion Kopecky in that standout style as the fans await here in Llandudno.
This is that right and right again, and then we'll take that left-hand turn where we'll go under the Flamme Rouge. That sign for 1 kilometre to go. We thought Anna Henderson was setting herself up for an attack in the finish. Will she try another move, or is this going to come down to a really fast sprint finish, tailwind finish into Llandudno?
Majerus leads through the right-hand turn. They'll bear to the left here, and they'll make their way onto the promenade here into Llandudno. Now it's a straight run in as they go through 1 kilometre to go. 1 kilometre remains of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. A gap starts to open up, and there is the world champion Kopecky just speaking into the radio. And now it's Majerus who pulls to the right-hand side, and immediately it's Anna Henderson who tries to take advantage.
Lotte Kopecky's closed that gap down now. She talked into the radio to Christine Margeroos, I'm sure, just to come off the front, off the pressure somewhat. Letizia Paternoster fighting for the world champion's wheel now, going neck and neck with Lizzie Deignan.
Paternoster has the wheel that she's looking for. It's the rider from Liverpool, Jaco, who wants to try and follow the rainbow jersey of Lotte Kopecky. Anna Henderson slots into the wheel of Paternoster. A little acceleration, and it's Ruby Roseman Gannon who is leading things out. Here comes Christine Majerus, the Luxembourgish champion, inside 300 metres to go. The world champion is there. Lotte Kopecky is looking over her right-hand shoulder, and at the moment it's advantage Kopecky. Here is Paternoster who's trying to challenge, and all the way to the line. It's going to be a throw. It's a throw and a photo finish. It looks as though right on the line, Paternoster thinks she's got it, and Paternoster wins stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Paternoster denies a world champion victory on the promenade in Llandudno.
Wow, wow, wow. What a finish there from Letizia Paternoster. She was so patient yet again. She chose the wheel she wanted in Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, and it was a throw to the line, but it looked like she had the momentum. She celebrated. Amazing finish there from the team of Liv Alula Jaco as well, with teammate Ruby Roseman Gannon in the final, setting that pace.
Pro victory number 5 for Letizia Paternoster. She opens up her winning account on the road for 2024. It's professional victory number 8 of the season for the Australian World Tour outfit, Liv Alula Jaco. Behind, it all turns to the birthday girl. It's Lucy Lee, who still has an advantage over the peloton behind. The rider who turns 26 today from Das Hutchinson Brother UK is coming into the closing kilometres. This is going to be a painful one. She can see just up ahead, 2 kilometres remaining for the British rider.
Yeah, it's going to be really painful for Lucy Lee here out front. I think she's got around 10 seconds from what we're seeing on our screens here. So naturally, the pace is going to increase as the peloton get closer and closer to the line to try and pick up those last remaining spots after that breakaway of 9. Made it to Llandudno up ahead, but what a fantastic day of racing.
The British rider attacked inside 10 kilometres to go to become the sole chaser of our 9 riders in the breakaway. Behind there wasn't too much reaction, but she'll make this right-hand turn, right hand again. She'll be onto the promenade here in Llandudno. You can see the pair and all those who've made their way out to one of the largest seaside resorts in Wales to come and cheer on stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women.
Very welcome tailwind as well for Lucy Lee, which will give her a slight advantage, of course, over if she was riding into a headwind. So it would be good to see where this peloton is now behind her. But great day out here for Lucy Lee.
Well, with the motorbike being behind her, it tells to me that the gap's certainly big enough between Lucy Lee and the peloton behind for our television motorbikes to see this shot, and she's got a nice straight run in to the finish line. Well deserved.
Couple of glances over her shoulder. Just focus on that finish line, Lucy.
Don't
but like
look
you
back.
said, it looks like it's going to be big enough for the birthday girl. Yeah, absolutely. From these great helicopter shots that we've got now.
Behind, they still know that time in terms of the general classification is still crucial. There's still 3 stages remaining after this one, and now teams start to set themselves up to try and deliver positions, results to limit losses. Lucy Lee sees 300 metres to go. It's been a brave, tenacious effort from the 26-year-old with a big smile upon her face. She'll have that finish line in sights, and she should hang on. She should hang on for a 10th place finish on stage 1 here. But behind, it's Human Powered Health who start to open things up with Charlotte Kool and Lorena Wiebes dueling it out for 11th position. It's a celebration for birthday girl Lucy Lee. She takes 10th place on stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Behind, it was the duel between the 2 fastest riders in the race, arguably, Lorena Wiebes and Charlotte Kool. Well,
what a stage. Relentless, wasn't it? From start to finish.
As soon as they went through kilometre 0, we saw action.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear.
It didn't relent, it didn't stop.
It didn't.
An attritional stage with a superb finish on Llandudno. The sun shining. Fantastic.
There's going to be a lot of tired legs out there after today's stage, that's for sure. Over 2,000 metres of climbing.
This is the run into the finish. It's Ruby Rose-Mangannon on the front. You can see Paternoster challenging for the wheel of the world champion. Talk me through how this sprint unfolds.
Yeah, you could see Ruby Rose-Mangannon setting a really fast pace there, knowing that Letizia Paternoster had the wheel she wanted in Lotte Kopecky. Christine Margeroos leading out the world champion, but Lotte Kopecky went very, very early. Yes, we knew there was a tailwind, but again, Letizia Paternoster was very, very patient, launched her move with about 100 metres to go actually, and just pipped the world champion on the line.
I'm still curious from that helicopter shot to see a photo finish, to see the photo on that finish line.
Tight, didn't it? She did celebrate, so generally the riders will kind of know with the momentum that they've got in that final who crossed the line first. But oh, it was close, Hannah. Really close, but we will have a photo
very
finish,
close.
I'm sure.
As we take a look at the helicopter shot of Llandudno. This was Lucy Lee coming into the finish. A well-deserved 10th place here. It was a brave effort. She took her opportunity, she took a chance. I think she's in a little bit of disbelief at what she's just achieved. A first top 10 finish on a UCI Women's World Tour race. And what a way to do it in your home race.
On your birthday.
On your
Chapeau.
birthday.
Yeah, chapeau. And I just love that. The delight of that almost victory salute for 10th place. But like you said, Hannah, it's a huge result. Top 10 in a World Tour race. So brilliant to see.
So 4 hours and 4 minutes of racing.
This was the front-on shot of the run-in for the 9 riders in the breakaway. They go through 300 metres to go, and it's Majerus who has Kopecky on the wheel. Does Kopecky go too early, do you think? Because she goes here with just before 200 metres to go.
Yeah, I mean, normally around 200 metres to go is where we see sprinters launching their moves, and especially into a tailwind, you would say it's not too early. She had the help of Christine Margeroos. She might have felt that the speed was coming off from the Luxembourg champion, but yeah, I mean, it's not too long in terms of a sprint, but Letizia Paternoster clearly timed it to perfection. If, of course, she took the stage, we were umming and ahhing, weren't we, on that potential photo finish because it looks so, so close. But good to see this overhead shot again here. This is the final kilometre. Christine Margeroos again leading out. This is where we had that little split, wasn't it? And you saw Lotte Kopecky talking into the radio.
Anna Henderson started to think about making a long-range attack in this final kilometre and perhaps thought otherwise because it was Lizzie Deignan who was on the wrong side of the split here. And this was where Paternoster, she knew the wheel she wanted to be on. She knew that was going to be the standout wheel in Lotte Kopecky. A little bit of argy-bargy between Paternoster and Deignan.
Yeah, and you can see Lizzie Deignan almost getting a little bit nervous there, trying to get herself alongside Lotte Kopecky, but actually what she's doing there is she's putting herself in the wind. She's having to do a lot more. And here, Letizia Paternoster is 100% committed to the World Championship, the World Champion's wheel here. She follows on the right. Lizzie Deignan's got to make a little bit more of a move onto Letizia Paternoster's wheel. And also Pfeiffer Georgie had real explosive power coming neck and neck with Lizzie Deignan there to take third on the stage. It does look, I think, for Letizia Paternoster that she just got it on the line with that overhead shot that we had there.
Letizia Paternoster believes she took stage 1 ahead of Lotte Kopecky. Pfeiffer Georgie taking third. That was clear as day with Lizzie Deignan taking 4th. A thrilling finale. We take a look over Llandudno Pier, which was completed in 1877. Actually is now a Grade 2 listed in the UK here. It not only remains the longest in Wales, but also one of the finest in the UK. It extends, you can see just on the right-hand side there, 700 metres into the Irish Sea. It's got the distinctive wrought iron railings. It's not out of the ordinary, and occasionally welcomes some cruise ships here into this part of the world. Not a bad place to come on holiday either.
Especially not if the sun is shining like it is today. So lovely weather here for the riders in this part of the country.
Longest pier, the longest running Punch and Judy.
Great ice cream, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. Britain's only
Welsh cakes
funicular.
too.
Britain's only funicular tramway. And it used to have the longest toboggan ride in the UK. One of the first lift inside a hotel in Wales. There's all sorts
I'm
of...
loving all these facts, Hannah.
Loads of facts of Llandudno. The sun is delivering beautiful countryside. The Great Orme is not too far away either.
A little Ferris wheel I just spotted there on the promenade, so a great day out, I'm sure. For these riders now, it will be all about the recovery process for tomorrow. So the riders would have crossed the line, they'll have their swannies there on the side of the road to give them that recovery shake. A few riders might just take a little time to cool down, maybe on the road, maybe on the rollers, just spin the legs, get that lactic acid out of the legs, especially if they went for the sprint, of course, in the breakaway, but not only that, in the peloton, of course, and then set their sights on tomorrow's stage, because of course it is a stage race, so it's not just about stage 1, but 2, 3 and 4 as well. And they'll have that transfer. Some riders off to Wrexham, of course, now. So some of the teams will have their team buses here. They'll have kind of the massage boots and whatnot, compression tights, and it all is really about that, the recovery process here.
And of course, the way that the route has been designed, 2 stages in Wales, you've got 2 stages in the northwest of England. They're in relatively close proximity to each other, so you've not got very long transfers, which is always a nice thing after a stage race, and particularly when you've had a stage like today where it's been relentless, it's been very attritional. There'll be a lot of fatigue sitting in the legs of the riders now.
Oh, there will be, and there's nothing worse than having a 4-hour transfer after a stage like this, especially if you don't have a team bus where you can really relax. And of course, once the riders get back to the team hotel, they'll get the dinner and they'll start the massage process. They'll want an early night as well.
Well, let's take a little look back at what happened earlier on in the day. They got underway from Broad Street in Welshpool to kick things off for stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. After 4.1 kilometres of neutralised section, the flag was waved by the race director. They went through kilometre 0, and immediately it was the former Oceania road race champion, Josie Talbot of Cofidis, who decided she wanted to try and escape the peloton. A strong performance from the rider from New South Wales. She might have wanted some riders to come with her. That was until the Luxembourgish champion Christine Majeres decided she wanted to try and make a move. Amber Pate trying to go across, as did Flora Perkins. A stage of 142.4 kilometres over 2,200 metres of elevation. We weren't even at one of the classified climbs and it was already climbing, attritional and a demanding stage. That all came back together and then the attention turned to the first Queen of the Mountain of the day, the Category 1 climb up to Llandudno, 6.1 kilometres long with an average gradient of 5.3%. It was Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93 who took things on up towards the front with their 19-year-old rider Bunel, but it was Heidi Franz who came through and took the 10 points in the classification. Lizzie Deignan getting herself involved with 8 points, opening and putting herself into that competition on the Queen of the Mountain. Over the top of the moors, things split, but it all came back together before this rider, the rider who's making her debut in a UCI Women's World Tour race, Lucy Harris of Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee Hargreaves Contracting, took her opportunity. She came into the second categorised climb of the day, Tina Clidiat, in a sole advantage before it all came back together, and then the select 9 riders went clear, including Lizzie Deignan, Anna Henderson and the world champion Kopecky. But it was the Olympic silver medalist Lizzie Deignan who went to top of the Queen of the Mountain to take the 6 points in that category 2. Into the one and only intermediate sprint of the day at Dolgarrog with 20 kilometres to go. The 9 riders had a pretty good advantage over the peloton behind. They could afford to start to look at each other because, of course, not only points available in the intermediate sprint, but of course those time bonus seconds for the general classification, always vital in races in Great Britain. It was Lizzie Deignan who was on the front trying to lead out Anna Henderson, but it was the rainbow jersey, the world champion of Lotte Kopecky, who struck first. But she had a fast and raring to go Letizia Paternoster on the wheel, and it was closely challenged as Kopecky looked across to her right. It was Paternoster who took the 3 bonus seconds and the 4 points in that classification. 2 seconds to Kopecky, 1 second to Pfeiffer Georgie. After a relatively flat 10 kilometres into the run-in into Llandudno, which is no stranger to pro bike racing, former winners here being Mark Renshaw in the past and Wout van Aert, it was Christine Majerus who led things into the right-hand turn to lead into 1 kilometre to go. Trying to set up Lotte Kopecky, Henderson was raring to try and make a move. Kopecky talking into the radio to tell her teammate on the front, Christine Majerus, that there was a gap starting to open up. Henderson was there, as was Ruby Roseman Gannon, and Pfeiffer Georgie, the only rider represented for Team DSM Firmenich PostNL in the move. Henderson thought about it, but perhaps thought otherwise, because perhaps her team leader, Lizzie Deignan, wasn't on the right side of the split. Ruby Roseman Gannon, the Australian road race champion, took it up on the front, knowing that Paternoster was the protected rider for Liv Alula-Jayco. She wanted the wheel of the world champion, Kopecky. She fought for it with Lizzie Deignan. A roaring tailwind finish into the promenade here in Llandudno. Victor Gielman, the rider at the back for San Michel, Mavic Aubert 93. Trying to move herself up, but on the right-hand side of the road, the left-hand side of the screen as we see it, it was Majerus who led out the world champion, Kopecky, with a tailwind finish. She hugged the barriers. It was closely fought for with Paternoster, a throw for the line, and still a photo finish, yet to confirm the official winner of stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Pfeiffer Georgie, clear as day, took 3rd place ahead of Lizzie Deignan, and we look over a glistening promenade and pier here in Llandudno. An entertaining finish, one in which we might have thought would be a large bunch sprint, Danny Rowe, and in the end it was quite the opposite, but still such a thrilling.
It was, and that's what we love about racing here in the UK. It's very, very unpredictable. We knew how tough it was going to be with over 2,000 metres of elevation, but we didn't quite know the tactics of the other teams, specifically SD Works Pro Time, and whether they would try and control things for Lorena Wiebes, but a more aggressive tactics was fought out, and it was one for the break.
Well, Danish Dam had outlined that they wanted to win all 4 stages here at the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. They've perhaps achieved that, because I think we can hear from the world champion, Lotte Kopecky, here at the finish in Llandudno.
Firstly, huge congratulations. What a gallop to the line. So close there with Paternoster. Can you talk us through it? Because it was very close there.
Yeah, I made a couple of mistakes in the sprint myself, but then we came to the line and it was like, okay, I can do only one more thing, is just make the best jump I can. And once we crossed the finish, Letizia, she raised her hands, but I was like, yeah, I'm not sure I won, but I'm also not sure that you won. So it was really, took quite a while before we found out I won.
And can you tell us a bit about those last few kilometres? Because it looked like once you knew that that gap wasn't going to get closed down, the games were starting to be played.
Yeah, we just had a really good group in the front. I was also happy to have Christine Majerus with me in the first group. But in the last 5 kilometers when you go to the finish, for sure when there are like two riders of a team, that they start playing the game. So it was a nice final, I think.
And how are the roads out there in Wales? Grippy?
Yeah, it was a nice stage actually. Pretty hilly, never flat, but it was also a lot of headwind. That made it a bit. But moments it went pretty slow just because of the wind. But yeah, in the end, I'm happy that we could get in a break in the final climb. I mean, in this last climb, and yeah, nice race.
Very nice to watch. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paternoster thought she had it on the line, but it was so close with that bike throw, wasn't it? Lotte Kopecky taking another victory of the season.
There we have it, confirmation of the results of stage 1. Kopecky wins in 4 hours and 4 minutes ahead of Letizia Paternoster. Pfeiffer Georgie taking third ahead of Dignan, Janssen, Henderson, Gielman, Majerus, Ruby Roseman Gannon, and Lucy Lee coming in at 3 minutes and 49 seconds behind. The 26-year-old on her birthday, picking up her first top 10 in a UCI Women's World Tour race. She took the gamble, it paid off. But in the end, it was the 9 riders in the breakaway who outwitted the peloton behind, and it was a world champion victory. Sometimes riders just know. They have that feeling. Even though you might have celebrated, they can feel and sense that they've taken the victory there, hence what Kopecky was saying in the interview.
Yeah, she said she made a few mistakes in the final, didn't she? But she was happy to have her teammate in Christine Majerus there at the end. She launched her sprint, maybe taking the longer line around the right-hand side. You can see it bend slightly to the left there as the riders run into the finish. But for Lotte Kopecky, I think she would have known, like you said, Hannah, that momentum in the finish, generally you do, unless it's a really tight on the line. But both riders with that real lunge that both of them would have known exactly how to do, being track riders as well. I'm sure Letizia Paternoster will be happy but gutted in the same sense.
It's a mix of combination of emotions, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because for Paternoster, she believed she'd won, she'd got herself into a breakaway. We know her as a sprinter, an excellent track rider. But for her, they're coming so close to a victory. And a first victory of the season on the road for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw her take that second place in the first stage of Ride London, and she was absolutely delighted with that. But I think what happens then is you're searching them for more and you want that first big victory. And then we saw how strong she was in the intermediate sprint. So that belief rises and rises again. And then she did celebrate over the line. So she will be, I'm sure, disappointed. But again, she's got such a run of form now, and she's got 3 more chances.
For Kopecky, she said she made some mistakes there in that sprint. She'll go away and analyse, and the team will analyse that sprint and what she could have done better to make sure that she had a clearer victory of margin. As we see some riders just coming in, 22 minutes and 8 seconds down. One rider there from Dolcini O'Shea finishing stage 1. Just shows how difficult the stage has been. But for Kopecky now, what will she look at? What do you think her big mistakes were? Because she said that, you know, she wasn't really happy. She made some mistakes in the sprint, and it was only by
I think there was a little bit of lack of communication potentially. We saw in that last kilometre where she did lose the wheel. Majerus was on the front. She had to close a couple of gaps in the final. So maybe that she went the longer way around as well. But I think that's what makes a great champion, that she doesn't become complacent and they do go away and they look at ways in which that they can improve where things didn't quite go to plan. It was tight on the line. So, yeah, I mean, that's why she's world champion. She's always looking at ways in which she can improve. But this is stage 1's winner, world champion Lotte Kopecky.
Lotte Kopecky is greeted by the crowds. It's a world champion victory in Llandudno. A nice trophy, a nice picture of the route of today's stage. And a beautiful bunch of flowers too. Should be happy with that. Professional victory number 40 for the world champion. Victory number 5 of 2024.
Now thanks to Rin Ampera, the Chief Executive of Corporate County Council, for presenting our first awards. We move on now to a presentation of the Stage Combativity Award. Reminding you, if we could
course, we'll have plenty of prize givings. We'll have our Queen of the Mountains jersey, the blue jersey. We'll also have the red jersey for the sprint jersey, the most combative rider of the day, the best young rider, and of course, crowning the first green Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women jersey of this year's race, the leader in the general classification. A well-deserved performance. Lucy Harris, she was brave, she was tenacious. She was the rider who took things up when the breakaway came back together. She went solo.
This makes it all worth it, doesn't it, Hannah? You know, she's standing now on the podium or on the stage of a World Tour race, showing her sponsors, showing her team. This will be a moment that she'll always remember.
A huge moment for the team too. In their first appearance in a UCI Women's World Tour race, they make the podium with Lucy Harris, a new signing for the team only a little over a month ago. A strong one, and one that they saw the talent, they saw the promise in Lucy Harris. That will give them so much confidence now of what they can achieve, what they can do.
Yeah, definitely. You know, they have to come into this race and, you know, take it by the scruff of the neck and not just follow, like we talked about when she was off the front, and give themselves the opportunity to feature in the bike race. And, you know, they've taken this prize away now for today. And it is that confidence that breeds confidence, and it comes with every single race that you ride. And now going forward, it's only going to be a positive. So, yeah, chapeau to Lucy Harris taking that competition.
Well, after the stage victory and picking up the 2 points in the intermediate sprint in Llanudno, it's Lotte Kopecky who leads the red sprint competition jersey. She'll be looking to add more points along with stage finishes and intermediate sprints, of course, picking up 12 points at the finish line there for that victory. 2 points at the intermediate sprint in Llanudno. 14 points is her lead currently in the red jersey. Brilliant viewpoint for all of the fans who have come to watch this first stage of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women here in Llandudno. Great vantage point to see the podium as they prepare for the Queen of the Mountains jersey.
So with 2 classified climbs successfully completed.
And of course, we had 2 categorised climbs today. The Category 1 climb in Llandudno, and then we had Llanudno, the Category 2 climb.
National team, it is Lizzie Dignan.
Hear the roar. Lizzie Dignan leads the blue jersey as the leader of the Queen of the Mountains competition after taking points in the first category climb and, of course, winning the 6 points in Llanudno on the Category 2. You could see she wanted to try and take the points there, to try and take home a jersey. It was a well-executed plan and a crowd favourite, and certainly one that had the fans at the finish line there on their feet.
Yeah, she's a real favourite, isn't she, amongst the British fans. Silver medalist, of course, in the London 2012 Olympics on the road. Took that first medal for the British athletes. She'll be looking to get her selection for the Paris Olympics coming up this summer. Looks like we're going to hear from Lizzie Dignan.
Jersey for the team of Volker Vessels and women's pro cycling.
Yeah.
It's Eileen Jensen.
Lizzie, so we're going to jump in there. Congratulations firstly on taking the blue jersey on the road today. Was this a team plan?
No, it was totally made up in the moment. I was in really good position over both climbs, and I thought, well, if I'm there, I might as well.
Might as well. Love the attitude. How was it out on the road today? It looked pretty brutal in those winds.
Yeah, it was a shame because it was actually headwind the whole day, so I think it kind of made the race a little bit more negative than the course lent itself to be, but we still got away on that second climb, so it was really cool actually, really beautiful, stunning.
And it's so important, isn't it, to all of us to have this race on the calendar, I think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about inspiring the next generation, and the best way to do that is to get in front of people and go through towns and villages where they may not necessarily know that women's cycling even exists. So, yeah, I hope we've inspired a few people today.
You certainly have. Congratulations. Thanks, Lizzie.
Inspiring the next generation, that they have done. They pass through so many primary schools, high schools along the route that have been able to take in and see stage 1 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. And this is our leader in the general classification. Lotte Kopecky takes the first green jersey. She's the leader in the general classification and will be looking to try and finish this 4-day stage race with this jersey on her shoulder. She's going to have strong opposition, but of course, to the rest of the peloton, she's got quite a buffer, over 3 minutes and 49 seconds. Of course, Lloyds Bank, the title sponsor of the race, and this is the run into the sprint finish. This shows just how close it was between Kopecky and Paternoster. All about the lunge for the line.
It is.
It was a late lunge for Paternoster. It seemed as though Kopecky got there just before her.
It did indeed, yeah. And both riders very much used to that lunge to the line, being, track riders as well. But it's just never over till it's over. It's so important to get that lunge right. Both pretty experienced in this domain, of course, being such fast sprinters and having so much success over their careers. But for Letizia Paternoster, so close, the closest she has been to that big win so far this season. She was stoked with her second place in Ride London, but I think this will be a little bit kind of bittersweet for the Italian rider who came so close today. But Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, took that first stage, and again a huge buffer really. She'll have 3 seconds over Letizia Paternoster, and then 7 to Pfeiffer Georgie, who is sat in 3rd place on that general classification.
Aline Janssen, one of the 9 riders, a part of that breakaway. She is leading the best young rider classification, so she'll be wearing white tomorrow for the Volker Wessels team. Great performance from Aline Janssen. You can just see how much the wind is blowing now, particularly as the day has gone on, and with that head crosswind, of course, the tailwind finish. Tomorrow, we've got another fantastic stage on our hands, starting and finishing in Wrexham, another stage here in Wales. It's going to be another terrific one, Danny.
It is, like you said, 140.2 kilometres, 1,570 metres of undulation with a Category 3 climb coming with 50.4 kilometres to go. And then that Cat 1 climb, Horseshoe Pass, 4.2 kilometres at 6.4%. The topping out at 26.6 kilometres to go. We also have a sprint point on offer, which comes with 3, 2 and 1 seconds. And then that finish back in Wrexham as well. A town that's become famous, hasn't it? Worldwide famous because of that infamous duo of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney perched in the football club as well. So look forward to it.
Making me look forward to stage 2 already of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Let's do it all again tomorrow, shall we? Join us tomorrow for stage 2. Thanks for watching stage 1. Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, winning stage 1 into Llandudno. She leads the green jersey, that Lloyds Bank green jersey overall. Make sure you join us tomorrow for stage 2. It's going to be a thriller. Don't miss it.